Chapter 981. The dark sky attracted everyone's attention. Busby looked up at the sky, staring at the mahogany in the sky. He clenched his fists, and his eyes finally fell on his arm that was being baked by the black fire. His hesitation was replaced by determination. Poochie. A cold light flashed, and Busby cut off his arm without hesitation. He glared at Dustless fiercely and disappeared. Bastard, that kid didn't abandon me and run away, did he? Candace, who had been paying attention to Busby's movements, said angrily. Caw caw caw. The redwood fell extremely fast. To some extent, lightning restrained the wood attribute, but the immortal technique, Bright God Gate, was not an ordinary technique. It was so powerful that it could temporarily suppress the jubi. Caw caw. Caw caw. With a series of crisp sounds, the blade that was completely composed of lightning was crushed by the bright deity gate's powerful suppression before it even had the chance to fall. The most shocking thing was that this red divine wood could absorb spiritual energy and swallow the remaining lightning blade until it turned into nothingness. Damn, where did this kid come from? Candace's pretty face collapsed, and she couldn't help but curse. Looking down at Dustless, who was motionless on the ground, a sense of frustration rose in her heart. She couldn't defeat him even after using all her skills. After pondering for a while, her body flashed with lightning and gradually showed signs of dissipating. She chose to avoid him for the time being. The two sides were not in the same dimension at all. If I were to let you leave after casually attacking others, wouldn't that be too much of a loss for me? The golden light condensed in front of Candace, and Dustless blocked her way. The Wandless Empire was a mystery, and it was impossible for them to confess. In this case, he could only use Rinnegan to forcibly extract her memory. A ripple appeared in the void, and it trembled slightly. Then, Dustless disappeared without a trace. Candace didn't have time to be surprised. She suddenly felt a pair of big warm hands grabbing her. She looked carefully, and a trace of jealousy flashed in her eyes. The slender fingers and delicate skin were more delicate than Candace, who usually paid attention to skincare. Especially, it was a pair of men's hands. Let me go. Candace struggled hard, but her right arm was restrained by Dustless. At the same time, she warned loudly, "Come so close to me, you're courting death." Paw. 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 Like a lightning man, his limbs and bones were covered in lightning. All of them swept towards Dustless's hand that was grabbing her, trying to use this method to force Dustless back. Naive, seeing this, Dustless remained unmoved, his eyes condensed, and he whispered, "Armament hockey hardening." The black brilliance swept out, and in the blink of an eye, Wuchen's entire body was filled with black skin. It was sparkling, and at the same time, it was also exceptionally hard. It could play the role of attacking and defending at the same time. Caw caw caw. Dustless didn't stop it, allowing the lightning to corrode his body. Crackling sounds could be heard as it attempted to destroy Dustless. Due to the lightning being too powerful, even Dustless's hair was dyed silver. How is this possible? Even lightning is immune? Candace swallowed her saliva in shock. Dustless's entire body was filled with lightning, but his expression remained the same, and his pupils remained unchanged. He wasn't affected at all. Even if there was, it could be ignored. The gap is too big. Don't worry, I'm not interested in you. That Yawatch is my target. Dustless gave Candace a reassuring look, indicating that there was no need to struggle. He said confidently, although to a certain extent, using Rinnegan to extract memories will turn those who are attacked into idiots in most cases. But my technique is guaranteed, so you can rest assured. After using Rinnegan for so many years, Dustless had already reached the realm of perfection. Extract memories? What do you want to do to His Majesty? Candace's face was filled with fear, and she instinctively struggled. I didn't expect you to be so loyal to Yawatch. His eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't expect this tall and strong girl to be so loyal to Yawatch. She didn't worry about his safety, but the old monster Yawatch. What a pity. Dustless smacked his lips. He felt that it was quite unfair for her. Whether you listen to me or not, remember, Yawatch is not a good thing. You, including the members of your Star Knights, are all his pawns. After making the best use of everything, you will be obliterated. Dustless said seriously. Immediately, regardless of how Candace reacted, he directly reached out and grabbed her head. He was about to use the ability of Rinnegan to extract her memories when a disruptor appeared out of nowhere. Burning Finger 3. The edge of the flame bullet was unstoppable, and in the blink of an eye, it was close to Dustless and Candace. You want to hurt me with this kind of thing? You silly boy with a coxcomb on your head, are you out of your mind? Stupid. Dustless sneered, his face full of disdain and casual. His arm covered with armament hockey went straight to the vulnerable flame. However, an unexpected scene suddenly happened. The moment the flame touched Dustless's palm, it was given life, bypassed the palm at a very tricky angle, and rushed toward Candace, once again restoring its destructive edge. Poochie. The girl touched the wound on her abdomen in disbelief, and her face was dull. Looking for the source, it was Busby with a cold and emotionless face. This kid changed his face faster than flipping a book. Just now, we were teammates fighting together, but now he's ruthless. In order not to let me extract her memories, he really killed her. Because he was very close, Dustless could clearly see that Candace's internal organs were instantly burned and seriously injured. I like to see people killing each other, but this is also good. After witnessing the coldness of the Star Knights, I might as well use her to retaliate against that old thing Yawatch. Hee. Dustless's gaze fell on Candace, whose face was full of despair, and a crafty smile involuntarily appeared on his face. Chapter 982. The reason why Busby killed Candace was very simple. He didn't want to leave anyone alive. This was because too many things were involved. If some secrets were exposed, it would shake the world greatly. The Wandless Empire, which had temporarily calmed down, would also suffer a destructive blow. Bah, Busby, you bastard. I will kill you. Candace's gem-like eyes flickered with the light of a beast as she roared hysterically. You are such a loyal friend, Jabok. You should be happy that you are willing to die for him. You should be thanking me for helping you. Busby said as if nothing had happened, as if he had done something insignificant. Aren't you afraid that Jugram will kill you for killing a member of the Sterncross Knights so casually? Dustless asked in confusion. Although he knew that Busby and Jugram had a good relationship, it was suspicious that he had overstepped his authority to kill a member of the Sterncross Knights so casually. After all, the leader of this group was Jabok. Even if he was in a deep sleep and had given Jugram the ruler's mask, it would be Jugram who would kill his subordinates, not Busby. That's right. If you kill me, Jugram won't let you go either. Enduring the burning pain, Candace stood on the same side as Dustless and said hatefully, I know that you have a good relationship with Jugram, but according to his nature, you will still be executed by Jugram when you return to the Wandless Empire. This was not a preamble. Everyone knew about Jugram's coldness. Idiot. Hearing this, Busby's face was full of mockery. He said in a shocking manner, since you are about to go to hell, I don't mind telling you that the person who ordered your execution is Hugo Jugram. Busby said with pity, Hugo Jugram once told me that if any of us failed, I should kill him as a show of loyalty to Jabok. After a moment of silence, the confusion in Dustless' eyes disappeared. Judging from Jugram's personality, he was indeed that kind of person. Sometimes, his personality was quite similar to Yawatch's. Dustless still remembered that when Yawatch revived and invaded Soul Society, Jugram had personally executed many members of the Sternritter. Just like what he said. His remaining arm pointed at Dustless as he said indifferently, you are just pawns being used. Once you lose your value, you will be abandoned. These merciless words were like a thorn that pierced deeply into Candace's heart. Her firm belief collapsed instantly. She stared at Busby with a murderous look, trembling all over. His respect for Yawatch and Jugram had also turned into hatred. He wished he could tear them into pieces and burn their bones to ashes to vent the hatred in his heart. That's for the best. Dustless suddenly smiled strangely. Then, he looked at the arrogant Busby with a playful look and said sarcastically, "Don't be so arrogant. You are no exception. You are also pawns being used by Yawatch." Hearing this, Busby's face turned gloomy. He did not need Dustless to explain. He knew what was going on. The game is over. Please go to hell. A golden flash whizzed over. It was so bright that he could not open his eyes. So fast. Even so, in a flash, Busby still saw Dustless's face. Whoosh. Busby had also learned a series of lessons from before. He was no longer as arrogant as before. He sensibly distanced himself from Dustless. Still want to run? How boring. Shaking his head, Dustless chased after Busby again. Idiot, you don't even know that you have been tricked. Did you think that I went to find reinforcements? How naive. Seeing Dustless rushing over, Busby's eyes shone. Cunning intent surged in the depths of his eyes. All the data on his body started to increase without limit. A quincy pentagram appeared above his head, and a pair of long stick-shaped wings appeared on his back. This shocking change naturally attracted Dustless's attention. Busby's spiritual pressure, speed, strength, and even height increased strangely. That's Quincy's perfect holy body. Candace shouted with all her strength. I know. Glancing indifferently at Candace, who was bleeding non-stop, Dustless really didn't know where he got his strength from. He reckoned that the reason he could hold on until now was because he wanted to see Busby get beaten up by Dustless to vent his anger. Scorching hell. His 5 fingers emitted extreme heat at the same time, forming a spiral shape and swallowing Dustless. Even the void along the way was scorched to the point of distortion due to its great power. Farewell, Busby said coldly. He was full of confidence. This was his strongest move. You are right. It is indeed farewell. There was a ripple in the void. Then, a huge spiral-shaped sword appeared and fell into Wu Chen's hand. This strange sword was emitting a strange red light. It was deciphering the basic structure of this world, as if it was making the final preparations to destroy this planet. It is a blessing of 3 lifetimes to be able to die under good separation sword. This special treatment is given to you because you are my spy. You should be grateful to me. Dustless said with an expression as if this was how it should be, completely ignoring the bulging veins on Busby's forehead. In his eyes, Busby was a dead man. There was no need to argue with a dead man. Whoosh. Staring at the fire dragon that wanted to devour him, Dustless moved with the momentum. He swept out his good separation sword, and a huge red light swept out from the tip of the good separation sword. The incomparably arrogant 5 flames instantly dissipated into thin air. After shattering them, they flew straight towards the dumbfounded Busby. Chapter 983. Dustless had made up his mind to kill Busby, so there was no way he would go easy on him. The sword energy was extremely fast, and it was already too late when Busby noticed it. Outer blood calming armor. Busby resisted with all his might under the shadow of death that he had never experienced before. He counterattacked with all his might, in a pattern domain that was dozens of times larger than the previous one spread out. Crack. The defense that he had high hopes for collapsed instantly. The good parting sword was unstoppable, and it easily tore through the defense of the outer blood calming armor. Are you kidding me? It's that easy? Busby's eyes widened as he faced the incoming red light. His soul trembled, and he felt a chill all over his body. The sharpness of this attack was enough to shatter the entire world. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Without thinking, Busby ran away at full speed, even forgetting the humiliation that Dustless had brought him. Where there was life, there was hope. It wouldn't be too late to take revenge on Dustless in the future. This Grim Reaper who was wearing an ordinary Grim Reaper outfit was too strong. Run slowly. It's useless even if you run to the ends of the earth. Glancing at Busby, who was running wildly, Dustless slowly landed on the ground. He lifted his head to see the red light following Busby. It seemed to have an automatic navigation system. It didn't want to let him go and even shortened the distance between them. Candace, who felt the ground tremble slightly, tried to open her eyes, revealing her gem-like pupils. She struggled to move her gaze, and just as she was about to see who it was, she heard a voice that sounded a little disdainful. It must be painful to be killed by a trusted companion, right? Dustless walked over and rubbed salt on her wounds. Her internal organs were already destroyed, and even a god couldn't save her. Are you here to mock me? Even though she was on the verge of death, the hot-tempered Candace still couldn't help but talk back. Soon after, she angrily roared, "If there is an afterlife, I will definitely kill that bastard Busby and Jugram, and tear Yuhabak into pieces." She had been loyal to Wandless Empire for hundreds of years, and in the end, she was abandoned and killed by her own people. How could she not be angry? How about we make a deal? After a moment of silence, Dustless said something shocking. His calm tone was extremely serious, and he obviously wasn't joking. "I can help you recover to your original state. However, as a condition, you have to provide me with information on Wandenrake and Habak. Jugram is even more dangerous than Sosuke Aizen. Let me recover? Do you think you're Yawatch?" After being stunned for a moment, Candace took it as a joke and said, "Even Yawatch, who prides himself as a god, can't come back to life after being killed, let alone you." He instinctively thought that this was a lie. Poochie. As the cloth was torn apart, Candace suddenly felt that her body was extremely cold. She reflexively looked at Dustless. "Bastard, I'm going to kill you. How dare you tear my clothes?" Candace was ashamed and angry at the same time. Her clothes were torn apart by Dustless, and her pair of snow-white huge breasts were exposed to the air. She felt cold all over. "Yawatch can't do it, but that doesn't mean I can't. Compared to me, his so-called god is just a mortal." Dustless stared at Candace's huge breasts without any scruples. His fingertips flashed, and he said, "How about it? Agree to my condition and I'll bring you back to life immediately. If you refuse, I'll give you complete freedom." Boom boom boom. At the same time, a dull explosion shook Hueco Mundo, and a fiery red aftershock rushed out. The sword energy of the good separation sword finally destroyed the escaping Busby, just as Dustless expected. The Ryatsu disappeared without a trace. Think about Yawatch's coldness, think about Busby's ruthlessness, think about Jugram's heartlessness, think about, let them live freely in this world safe and sound. Are you willing? Dustless's eyes glowed red as he tempted her. "Busby? Didn't you just kill him?" The sudden words made Dustless feel awkward, but his face was as thick as a city wall. He just smiled and continued to persuade her, "In short, I can bring you back to life, but the condition is that you tell me everything about Wandenrake, your future activities, future plans, and of course, information about Yawatch." This kind of small injury would kill anyone else, but in Dustless's eyes, it was just a small matter. Not to mention some heaven-defying ninjutsu. After he awakened the glint fruit, he could regenerate broken limbs, and it wouldn't be difficult for him to remodel someone's internal organs. "No problem, if you fail, I'll take it that you've tricked me again." Clenching her fists, Candace thought of Yawatch and Jugram, and said resolutely. She couldn't die like this, and she still had to take revenge on Wandenrake. "As you wish." Hearing this, Dustless breathed a sigh of relief, and put his right hand on Candace's chest. The warm and soft touch made Dustless excited, and he couldn't help but sneak a few touches. "You better watch yourself." Candace's delicate face was red, and she warned him while gnashing her teeth. That's necessary before the treatment. I need to detect the degree of damage to your body before I can treat it properly." Dustless's face twitched, and he casually found an excuse. "Humph. How is this possible? You can really do it." Candace was about to scold Dustless, but her burned chest suddenly became warm and comfortable, and the burned and necrotic skin healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. I've said it before, compared to me, Yawatch turned from a god to a mortal. Dustless smiled confidently, and his right arm bloomed with a dazzling golden light, full of vitality, and looked very sacred, repairing and recreating brand new internal organs. The heart that had originally disappeared slowly reappeared, and it was beating with a thump thump thump. Chapter 984. Miracles continued to happen. In just a few minutes, Candace, who was half a step away from the gates of hell, was pulled back by Dustless. She sat there in a daze. Her breasts were exposed to the air, but they were covered by a random piece of cloth. Candace wanted to rob Dustless of his clothes, but he refused with the ridiculous reason that he was afraid of the cold. This body, TSK, Wu Chen's eyes were sparkling and shifty. Out of the corner of his eyes, Wu Chen could not take his eyes off Candace. Candace, who was wearing revealing clothes, was pulling his mind. When did I fall so low? Dustless couldn't help but sigh as he thought of himself. When a person was strong enough, his desires would also be stronger. Now that you've been resurrected, tell me about Yawatch's deeds in exchange. Dustless shook his head and threw away the dirty thoughts in his mind. In Soul Society, Yawatch was a forbidden existence. All information about him had been erased. No problem, but what I know is just bits and pieces. Candace was very embarrassed. Although Dustless had resurrected her, he could only provide her with some insignificant and harmless information. His Majesty. Oh, no, that bastard. Candace was furious when she thought of Yawatch. Although it was Busby who killed her, she could see clearly what kind of people Yawatch and Jugram were. Yawatch is currently in a deep slumber. No one in the Starcross Knights knows where his true body is. Judging from his character, even Jugram, his trusted aide, might not know. Candace shrugged and said helplessly. Jugram was now equivalent to the second king of Wandless Empire. Even he didn't know where Yawatch's true body was, let alone Candace, whose role was equivalent to cannon fodder. I've heard that Jugram has been following Yawatch since 1,000 years ago. At that time, his position was very high, and he was the second most important person in Wandless Empire. And for some reason, when Yawatch was in a deep sleep, he would exchange power with Jugram. Candace told him everything she knew. She hated Yawatch to the core. That's strange. If I remember correctly, Jugram's ability is balance. Why would Yolanda need balance? Dustless asked curiously. He was very curious about this mysterious figure, Yawatch. This time, it was Candace's turn to be surprised. She looked at Dustless in disbelief. Even the people of Wandless Empire might not know what Jugram's ability was, but a Grim Reaper like Dustless knew about it. How could Candace not be surprised? Forget it, it's none of my business. After casually tidying up her clothes, Candace turned around and was about to leave. Hey. I didn't give you permission to leave. Who allowed you to leave? Dustless frowned and said unhappily. Candace furrowed her brows and said frankly, I've told you everything I know about Yawatch, which means I've fulfilled our agreement. So, I have to leave. Hearing this, Dustless chuckled and said teasingly, what if I say no? In this world where the strong prey on the weak, the words of those with bigger fists are imperial edicts. Just like Yawatch, I'm ordering you to stop now. I have something I need you to do. Dustless said mercilessly. Because his fists were bigger and he was stronger, he could ignore Candace's feelings. Ordering me? I'm not your subordinate, so I won't keep you company. Candace's resolute tone left no room for negotiation. You don't seem to understand one thing. If I'm not wrong, you should be planning to leave Wandless Empire. But, the only thing waiting for you is death. His words were far more effective than real swords and spears, and Candace stopped moving. What do you mean? She turned her head and glared at Dustless, clenching her fists. I killed Busby, and you know his relationship with Jugram. They were close friends. Now that he's dead for no reason, Jugram won't let you off easily since you teamed up with Busby." Hearing this, Candace hesitated. She didn't doubt Dustless's words at all. As a member of Wandless Empire, she knew Jugram's personality the best. "So what? Are you so kind as to let me hide in Soul Society?" Candace felt frustrated after finding that there was no way out. "That's impossible. Actually, you don't have to run away. You can continue to hide in Wandless Empire and provide me with information, as well as your future plans," Dustless said seriously. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Candace fiercely attacked him. "You Grim Reapers really aren't good people. You want me to go back to Wandless Empire? How are you going to explain Busby's death? You're sending me to the lion's den." She could go back to Wandless Empire, but she had to explain Busby's death and the details. "That's simple. I've already thought about it for you. Just tell me the truth," Dustless said calmly. His tone was always calm as he added, "Just tell me the truth. Just say that I killed Busby and push all the blame to me. That way, you can explain Busby's death. You can also stay safely in Wandless Empire without being suspected. Aren't you afraid of Wandless Empire's revenge? Jugram is now equivalent to a king. He can order all the Sterncross Knights to surround and attack you." Candace took a deep breath and said. She was somewhat impressed by Dustless's courage. "Since I'm already here, I'll take it as it comes. What's there to be afraid of?" Dustless said calmly. Chapter 985. As for revenge, Dustless wasn't afraid of it. Wandenrake was a rat in the dark, even more shady than Sosuke Aizen. Jugram wasn't stupid enough to use all of Wandenrake's power against Dustless. "Okay, do as I said, I'll take care of everything." Dustless patted the dust off his butt and collected the dusty Yakushi and Rokush Kenshi's body. These two were the guarantee of his fame and fortune. "Thank you." Candace's tone was much gentler, she was sincere. Dustless looked at her strangely and said seriously, "You don't need to thank me. Just tell me the future movements of Wandenrake and all the secrets you know." This was a deal, there was no need to thank her. In the modern world, the captains were still fighting against Wandenrake, but it was obvious that both sides didn't use their full strength. After all, they were former teammates. But there was one exception. "You bastard," Hirako Shinko was covered in blood, but his opponent Sosuke Aizen was unharmed. Although his face was pale and his Ryatsu was exhausted, Hirako Shinko knew that Aizen was faking it. In the face of so many captains, Wandenrake didn't bother to explain their grievances. After all, it was a fact that they obtained the power of voids. Silver, while the Shinigami captains were fighting, Aizen quietly approached Jin and gave him a strange look. "Understood, Captain Aizen." Jin's lips curled into a sly smile as he secretly used his Ryatsu to the extreme. At the same time, he secretly prepared a portal to leave the modern world and return to Soul Society. "What a pity, Captain Hirako." Aizen's Ryatsu was several times stronger, and he easily forced Hirako back. Then, he suddenly changed his attack and rushed towards Rokush. Jin did the same. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The one fighting Rokush was a captain, and now that Sosuke Aizen and Jin attacked him, it was like three captains attacking him at the same time. Pucci. Pucci. Even though he had already noticed it, the team leader wasn't a newbie after all. It was impossible for him to be insta-killed without realizing it. Even so, Rokuro Toshiro was still heavily injured in an instant. It was Ikamaru Jin and Aizen Sosuke who stabbed the two Zanpakuto into his body and deliberately avoided the fatal spots. This unexpected scene shocked everyone. "I will tear you to pieces, Sosuke Aizen." The members of the Masked Legion led by Hirako Shinko roared and glared at Aizen Sosuke and Soul Society's people with fiery eyes. "Goodbye, Captain Hirako." Aizen smiled indifferently. Since hundreds of years ago, he had never put this Hirako Shinko in his eyes. He was just a little bug that wasn't worth paying attention to. At the same time, Ikamaru Jin opened the crossing world gate and retreated while carrying the heavily injured and unconscious Rokuro Toshiro. Central Room 46's mission has been completed. Everyone, please retreat. Ikamaru Jin disappeared after leaving behind such a statement. The rest of the captains looked at each other with mixed feelings in their hearts. They looked at their former teammates, who had now become enemies that they would not rest until they were dead. Especially after capturing Rokuro Toshiro alive, the hatred between the two sides will only get worse. Boom boom boom. Seeing this, the members of the Masked Legion opened their mouths and bombarded the crossing world gate. Several powerful void flashes swept out and shattered the crossing world gate. But it was too late. The team leaders of Soul Society had already disappeared. Although the battle between the modern world and the Masked Legion was beyond everyone's expectations, the mission was still completed successfully and they captured Rokuro Toshiro alive. After completing the mission of Central Room 46, Yamamoto didn't even have time to be happy. Instead, he almost fainted from anger when he heard the next news. It was a huge shock to the entire Soul Society. Captain Yakushi is dead? Tell me what's going on. The deafening roar of the head captain came from the first team. The shock wave caused by the roar shook the entire first team. His eyes were bloodshot and filled with murderous intent. Where's the murderer? Who's the murderer? This old man will kill him with his own hands to avenge Captain Yakushi. Looking at Dustless, the head captain asked coldly. Looking over, there were two corpses on the ground. One was Yakushi Kenpachi and the other was Rokuro Boxer Nishi. Hee. Who's the murderer? Of course it's me. Too bad you'll never know in this lifetime. Dustless laughed in his heart. The prepared speech appeared in his mind. He explained, the battle that day was very intense. Captain Yakushi Kenpachi used his absolute strength to severely injure Rokuro Boxer Nishi for the sake of Soul Society's peace. First praising Yakushi Kenpachi, Dustless revealed a sorrowful expression. Who would have thought that Rokuro Boxer Nishi would be so cunning? He deliberately pretended to be weak and lost to Captain Yakushi Kenpachi. In the end, he went crazy and burned himself as a medium to activate Hado 96's cremation. That's how he took Captain Yakushi Kenpachi down with him. Dustless's words immediately resonated with all the captains, including Old Man Yamamoto, who nodded. He knew how terrifying and powerful cremation was, and it was obvious that both of them had been killed by number 96's Tao Breaker. However, there were always people who liked to sing a different tune. Someone immediately jumped out to question Dustless. Looking up, this person was the smiling tiger, Sosuke Aizen. Chapter 986. It had to be said that Aizen's smile, his actions, and his simple words were all very convincing. He always gave people the impression that his thoughts were clear and logical. Vice Captain Dustless, you and Captain Yasukuni have some unexplainable grudges. Forgive me for being blunt, but it's a bit hasty to decide the death of two captains based on your words alone. Aizen's eyes reflected the light of wisdom as he spoke rationally. Hearing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows. He knew that Aizen would use this opportunity to make things difficult for him. It would be best if he could remove Dustless from his vice captain position. Even if he couldn't, at least Aizen wouldn't be harmed. Dustless remained silent. He knew that Aizen had something else to say. Captain Aizen, what do you mean? Her gentle voice sounded. She was clearly angry as she spoke to Aizen in an unfriendly manner. Captain Unohana. Aizen Sosuke raised his eyebrows. He was quite unhappy and depressed. He looked at the expressionless Dustless from the corner of his eyes. He had tried to win over Unohana Retsu, but in the end, he didn't succeed. Who would have thought that this kid would change so quickly? Captain Uno Flower, there's no need to be angry. I'm just stating the facts. Roshi Kanishi was once a captain, and so was Ghost Yen Cheng. If the deaths of the two captains are decided based on his words, how are we going to answer to Central 46? Aizen looked at Dustless with a smile, his face still as gentle as ever. Based on what you're saying, it's as if Irina-kun killed Yasukuni. Unohua Lai did not appreciate his kindness and continued to argue. The cause of their deaths was Tao Breaker number 96. Chin-jun had only studied the path of ghost with me for half a year, so how could he have learned a Tao Breaker at the level of Tao Breaker number 96? That makes sense. All the captains nodded. They thought that Unohana's words were reasonable. A person who had only been a Shinigami for half a year couldn't have learned Heido 96. Dustless remained silent as if nothing had happened. He looked at Aizen. He knew that this kid had other tricks up his sleeve. Is that so? That's only for normal people. Don't forget that Vice Captain Dustless defeated Captain Yasukuni before learning Shinigami's techniques. Aizen smiled and calmly retorted, also, I didn't insinuate that Vice Captain Dustless is a murderer, but, Aizen then stopped and said cunningly, since Vice Captain Dustless is innocent, why don't you remove the bandage on his right arm? Aizen's words drew the attention of the captains to Dustless, or rather, to his right arm. It's indeed burnt. Shunsui Kyogre and the other veteran captains were bright and experienced. They immediately recognized that Dustless's right arm was burned. Since you want to prove your innocence, remove the bandage and let everyone see. Aizen's tone was different from before. It was more serious. Aizen pretended to be distressed. Vice Captain Yasukuni is a strict person, but he's also our colleague. Now that he's gone, Dustless looked at Aizen strangely. He couldn't help but feel strange. Captain Aizen, you're deliberately attacking me. Dustless wasn't easy to deal with. I'm just stating facts. Since you're innocent, remove the bandage on your arm. Aizen didn't back down. If you're innocent, I'm willing to elect you as the captain of the 11th Division. Aizen's tone was righteous. He was sure that he had seen Dustless's arm by chance. It was definitely caused by Heido 96. This old man, Dustless, was silent. He did burn his arm when he used cremation, but because he had the body of the Jubi, he recovered quickly. However, there were still sequelae. Perhaps because he was in soul form, the recovery was slower than before. There were still scars. No wonder he's so confident. He's so meticulous. He didn't succeed because of luck. Dustless secretly used the glinting fruit's ability to repair his meridians. At the same time, his brain was working hard to stall for time. Captain Aizen is being unreasonable. I followed Vice Captain Yasukuni to Hueco Mundo and was ambushed by a void. Then remove the bandage to prove your innocence. Sosuke Aizen continued to repeat this sentence. Seeing this, Dustless suddenly smiled and said, the world is really strange. If I remember correctly, Captain Aizen abandoned his chant and used Heido 91. I'm afraid not many captains can do that, but Captain Aizen did it effortlessly. I don't know why he deliberately hid his strength. You're right. Captain Aizen, don't you want to explain? Unohana Retsu realized something was wrong. Aizen had deliberately hidden his strength before. When he revealed his strength, it was only at the level of an ordinary captain. Now that he abandoned his chant and used Heido 91, it didn't make sense. Aizen Sosuke's old face twitched, almost spitting out blood. Over the years, he deliberately hid his strength, of course, in order to plot against Soul Society. That day, he used his full strength because he had no choice. After all, the situation was too dangerous. Soul Society's safety is getting worse. I've been training hard over the years. Captain East often practices with me. You can ask him about this. My strength has improved considerably. East deity immediately came out and nodded. Chapter 987. As Aizen Sosuke's most loyal lackey, East Sendai was always at Aizen Sosuke's beck and call. No matter what it was, as long as Aizen Sosuke ordered him to do it, he would do it. These two are really good at cooperating. Dustless knew that Aizen's explanation was a bit far-fetched, but with the captain as his witness, he could rest easy. That's right. Sure enough, just as Dustless guessed, Yamamoto nodded gently. He appreciated Aizen's learning attitude. Learning was like sailing against the current. If you don't move forward, you'll fall behind. Only by forcing yourself to improve can you improve. Yamamoto often encouraged his first team members like this. Don't change the topic. Aizen took a deep breath and calmed down. Dustless hit him with a stick, so he naturally retaliated. The captain knows a lot about Heido 96. If you're innocent, just remove the bandage. Aizen didn't let go of Dust's wound. Even if I remove the bandage, it won't affect the wound. What's more, Unflower's captain is here. She can prove your innocence. If this has nothing to do with you, I'm willing to recommend you as the captain of the 11th Division. Aizen gritted his teeth and repeated. All the captains looked at Wucha's burned arm. The atmosphere was oppressive. I'm willing too. East Sendai followed. His tone was firm. He was sure that Dustless would win. These two bastards, one singing and one drinking, they really know how to play. Wuchen frowned, but then he sneered, since Captain Aizen says so, I'll take off the bandage and show it to you. I'll leave everything to the head captain. Under everyone's surprise, Dustless removed the bandage. Chinkuan, you don't have to care so much. Aizen is just being unreasonable. Unohana whispered to Dustless. I'm sorry for the trouble, but, since Captain Aizen wants to see it, I'll let you see it clearly. After Wuchen finished speaking, he revealed the scorched black scars, which were particularly horrifying. His skin was completely necrotic and severely burned. Obviously, he had suffered an extremely serious fire injury. Seeing this, the captain looked at Dustless with uncertainty. The serious burn marks were definitely caused by number 96's Dao-breaking saber cremation. Clang clang clang, vaguely, there was the sound of Zanpakuto being unsheathed. Looking up, many captains had their Zanpakuto out and were staring at Dustless with murderous intent. At the same time, they were shocked. This kid had only been exposed to the Shinigami for half a year, and he could use Heido 96's skill. The burn on Dustless' arm also attracted Uno Hua Lai's attention, and her eyes lit up. Cocoon Lee also looked at the burn marks and shook his head. How is it? Now you're speechless. Sosuke Aizen was feeling smug inside, but his expression was one of sadness. He smiled bitterly. Captain Yasushi is a strict person, and he doesn't like to rub sand in his eyes. Usually, he attracts the jealousy of many people. However, you actually dared to be so ruthless. How ruthless is your heart? Even if I let you go, Soul Society won't let you go. After Aizen said that, the whole place was filled with murderous intent. Some of the captains even pointed their Zanpakuto at Dustless. Just as he was about to lose control and go completely berserk, an old and full of confidence roared out. Shut up. Put away your Zanpakuto, you idiots. Head Captain Yamamoto's squinted eyes suddenly widened, and an extremely powerful aura emanated from his body, causing everyone to feel dizzy and deaf. Although the burn marks are very similar to cremation, but that's not it. Head Captain Yamamoto tapped his crutch on the ground and looked at Wuchen. His old lips squirmed as he said, "Thank you for your trouble." Hee hee. In order to prove my innocence, this is not worth mentioning. Dustless smiled. Spiritual pressure came out of his finger. It was as sharp as a knife. He slid it on the burnt skin, and some red blood flowed out. This is impossible. After a long pause, Aizen was the first to refute. His pupils were dilated and full of shock. 96 Heido cremation is a sacrificial forbidden technique. Once it's used, it must burn the body. Yamamoto paused here. Unohana explained, if Chinkuan really uses Heido cremation, the whole arm will be dead. Even the wound won't bleed. Although the burnt skin is close to Heido cremation, it's caused by Hueco Mundo. Captain Unohana, you're right. Dustless smiled and gave a thumbs up. Captain Yamamoto is right. Heido cremation uses burning oneself as a medium. If the burnt part is the arm, then all the cells and tissues will be destroyed. It's impossible to bleed. Captain Eisen made a mistake this time. Mari Nya also said. You want to fight with me? You're asking to be humiliated. Dustless laughed in his heart. Eisen's twitching face made him feel good, but his face was full of grievances. Suddenly remembering Eisen's promise, Dustless quickly ran to him and bowed to thank him. Thank you, Captain Eisen, for recommending me as the captain of the 11th Division. I'm very grateful. Eisen Suk's eyes darkened as he lost his balance. His face turned green as he stared at Dustless in front of him. If he could, he would have pulled out his sword and cut Dustless to pieces. He lifted the stone but didn't hit Wu Chen. Instead, he hit himself until he saw stars. This kid did it on purpose. Eisen suddenly remembered Dustless's strange behavior a day ago. He was sure that Dustless was deliberately baiting him. Because a day ago, Dustless's arm was still in a necrotic state, but now it was only slightly damaged. He was obviously tricking Eisen. Chapter 988. Eisen Sosuke's heart was in turmoil. He felt extremely uncomfortable, but he couldn't say anything. He could only bury this resentment in his chest. Captain Eisen. You were too reckless this time. Yamamoto rolled his eyes and said unhappily. Dustless was a vice-captain, his strength was comparable to a captain-level Shinigami, maybe even stronger. Eisen was framing him without any evidence. Serves you right. Dustless glanced at Eisen, whose expression returned to normal. He sneered, he brought this upon himself. By the way, since Captain Eisen and Captain Toes both agree that Irina-kun should be the captain of the 11th Division, the one who spoke was Uno Hualai. After careful consideration, she said, with Lord Chen's strength, it is indeed unsuitable for him to stay in the 4th Division. Indeed, Shunsui looked at Dustless. He couldn't deny that Dustless was the strongest among all the vice-captains. I also agree that he should be the captain of the 11th Division. Someone must inherit the title of Kenba, and Soul Society can't do without the 11th Division. Dustless looked at this scene calmly. He looked at Sosuke Eisen with pity. This was his plan, but it turned out to be the opposite of what he wanted. Uno Hanaretsu, Shunsui, Eisen, and Toes who lost the bet just now could be promoted to the captain's position. There were now 4 vice-captains, including Uno Hanaretsu, Shunsui, and Eisen. Being promoted to the captain's position was a matter of course. You want to be the captain? In your dreams. Eisen's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. He was determined not to let Dustless take the captain's position. The two were fighting, and Eisen was the one who suffered. Dustless was only a vice-captain, yet he was so arrogant, he didn't put him in his eyes. Once he became the captain of the 11th Division, he would become even more arrogant. Eisen raised his head and looked at Jin with a meaningful look. The voice of a sly old fox filled with ill intentions sounded. Ikamaru Jin stepped out of the formation with a smile on his face. I don't agree with him becoming the captain. A single stone stirred up 1,000 ripples, attracting everyone's attention. Ikamaru Jin wasn't afraid at all. He was as calm as a mountain as he said with certainty. What's the reason? The head captain nodded and said, I need a reasonable explanation, a reason why Dustless can't be the captain. Ikamaru Jin lowered his head. He didn't have an excuse. Eisen had instigated him to mess things up, so he didn't have enough time to prepare a proper excuse. He has only been in Soul Society for half a year. We need more time to observe him. Ikamaru Jin casually found a suitable excuse to fool old man Yamamoto. Dustless looked at Eisen, Higashi, and Jin. He thought, these 3 are very close. I have to find a chance to kill one of them. Even if I can't kill one of them, I have to drag one of them down from the captain's position. He had to tear them apart. That's not a problem, even if it's only been half a year. Unkuen's contribution to Soul Society is well known, and his strength is recognized. Uno Hanaretsu smiled and helped. Captain Jin, what do you think should be done to be the captain? Glancing at Jin Ikamaru, Wuchen asked calmly. There was a hint of cunning in his words. Dustless wasn't going to let him off so easily. After all, he was just Eisen's lackey. Dustless had no intention of letting him off so easily. Dustless had no intention of letting him off. With a playful look on his face, Dustless asked with a pleasant countenance, "Is it that if you defeat Captain Ikemara Jin, you can be the captain of the 11th Division?" Light Zhao's playful words were full of provocation. Dustless pointed the spearhead at Jin. "No matter how arrogant you are, you should know when to stop. If I don't teach you a lesson, you'll think you're invincible." Hearing this, Jin's heart sank, and his fox-like smile froze. A cold light condensed in Jin's eyes, and his heart couldn't help but burst into flames. A mere vice-captain dared to challenge him in front of so many people. Even with Ikemara Jin's temperament of not liking to compete, sparks flew. "Idiot, he's going to cripple you." Eisen looked at Jin and Dustless. He instantly understood Dustless's intention. Even though he said to stop, a duel was always changing. A moment of carelessness could result in a broken arm or leg. This kind of thing happened. "Why don't we let Central Room 46 decide?" Eisen stood up. Jin was very important to him. He could be considered his right arm. He couldn't afford to lose him. If Dustless destroyed him, it would be bad. King of Hueco Mundo, Baligan, had already died mysteriously. Eisen couldn't afford to lose Jin. The plan might have to be delayed for another few hundred years. The captain's choice has nothing to do with Central Room 46, it's completely up to the head captain. Unohana Retsu stood up and interrupted. "In that case, Vice Captain Dustless will temporarily replace Oni Yencheng and become the 11th Kenpachi." The head captain looked around and saw that all the captains were silent. This was equivalent to a tacit agreement, so he finally made a decision. In fact, head captain Yamamoto also hoped that Dustless would replace the original Ghost Yencheng. That guy was rude and had no etiquette, like a living beast. He didn't have the demeanor and bearing of a captain, and usually, Ghost Yencheng was even at odds with Yamamoto. If he died, then so be it. Having a better replacement was the best of both worlds. Chapter 989. Eisen Sosuke was unwilling, but he had no choice but to accept it. Dustless becoming the 11th Kenpachi was inevitable. Even if he used Kyoka Suijetsu to hypnotize Central Room 46, it would be useless. Yamamoto was the only one who had the authority to promote the captain. Other people's words were useless, they were just scratching Yamamoto's itch. It would be difficult to shake Yamamoto's will. Moreover, as Shunshui had said before, since Ghost Yencheng's 8th saber was dead, a new captain had to be chosen. The position of Soul Society's 8th saber had to be replaced by someone else. Man proposes, God disposes. Who would have thought that this brat would take advantage of me in the end? Eisen clenched his fists, his heart filled with grief and anger. Eisen didn't offend Dustless and even tried to rope him in. Who would have thought that Dustless would take the initiative to attack him? This was the reason why the two of them were now enemies. Eisen's eyes flashed coldly as he thought to himself, "I need to find the right opportunity to kill him. This brat is strong and always against me. He hindered my plans time and time again. He's a scourge, a cancer." Several perfect plans were ruined by this eyesore. Not only that, sometimes Eisen didn't get any benefits and even got himself into trouble. He suffered a double loss. "If you want to play, I'll play with you until the end. Let's see who dies first." Dustless sneered. Eisen's eyes were filled with bloodlust. "What are you doing? Chinkuan, why aren't you thanking the head captain?" Unohana reminded Dustless when she saw him in a daze. "Look at my memory." "Thank you, Head Captain Yamamoto. I will do my best to protect Soul Society in the future." Dustless bowed to Head Captain Yamamoto to express his gratitude, but in his heart, he didn't think much of it. After all, this old man just liked him because he was strong and loyal to Soul Society for the time being. He was a good coolie. However, what I want to protect is my own Soul Society, not some Spirit King's Soul Society, and I have no interest in being loyal to him. Wuchen added in his heart. People were selfish. Dustless wouldn't meddle in other people's business. Even if Yawatch killed Soul King in the future, Dustless would treat him coldly if he didn't get any benefits. Dustless didn't care about the collapse of Vientiane and the life and death of the people. He wasn't holy enough to rule the world. 10 days passed by in the blink of an eye. 10th Kenpachi, Ghost Yen Cheng. The news of his death swept through the entire Soul Society like a hurricane. This sudden explosive news made the entire Soul Society tremble. Kenpachi's death was no small matter. Kenpachi meant the strongest swordsman in Soul Society. Many people were secretly eyeing this title. Now that it fell into Dustless's hands, it was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples and attracted a lot of attention. And the person who started it all, Dustless, stayed in the 11th Division as if nothing had happened. Everyone else has a Zanpakuto. Why didn't I react at all? Under the cherry blossom tree, the red cherry blossoms were floating and painting the whole world. Dustless, on the other hand, was frowning and looking very dispirited. He wasn't interested in this beautiful scenery at all, and his face was full of melancholy. At this moment, Dustless was also different from before. He was wearing the captain's haori, and there was a conspicuous 11th engraved on the back. Although he was now the captain, Dustless couldn't feel happy. A captain of death without a Zanpakuto, Dustless felt his face burning just thinking about it. In the history of Soul Society, he was probably the only one. Even Zaraki Kenpachi, that weirdo, had a Zanpakuto. Vice Captain Dustless, no, Captain Dustless. A beautiful figure suddenly flashed. A girl with silver hair was clearly visible. Her skin was white, and her watery eyes blinked. The first impression she gave was light and beautiful. It's you, Yong-in. Sorry for borrowing you from the 4th Division. I'm really sorry. Captain Uno Flower must be very distressed and depressed. Dustless scratched his head and said awkwardly. Captain, you must be joking. When I find a suitable vice-captain, I will return to the 4th Division. And if it weren't for you, I would still be in the 3rd Division. Yong-in shook her head. She was now the vice-captain of the 11th Division. Dustless could only smile bitterly. The original vice-captain of the 11th Division was sent home to farm. That guy was stubborn and didn't like Dustless, so he could only ask him to leave. Those who follow me prosper, those who oppose me crawl. Why are you looking for me? Is there another blind bastard who wants to challenge me? Touching the first-generation ghost blade on his knees, Wu Chen's words were filled with murderous intent. Not long after he became the captain of the 11th Division, someone came to slap his face. There was no limit to the number of challengers. It seems that I'm too merciful. Those who challenged me before, I let them live. So there are more and more people who dare to challenge me. If I don't kill a few people, they will really think that a monkey can touch a tiger's butt. Dustless said with a murderous tone. After he finished speaking, he walked toward the 11th Division. Yong-yin's face was strange. She felt that Dustless's metaphor was not appropriate. Looking at the gradually disappearing figure, he sighed silently and chased after him. Soul Society was such a place where the strong preyed on the weak. Killing a few more people would cause others to be fearful and mercifully let them go. Some people would think that this was showing weakness and would not know what was good for them and try to take advantage of it. Captain, I forgot to tell you. The man who challenged you this time is different. I heard that his name is Zaraki. Chapter 990. Zaraki. These two words seemed to be full of magical power, eroding Dustless's mind, and silkening his reason. His footsteps also stopped, and he stood in place like a sculpture. A fierce man with a broad body and a serrated Zanpakuto in his hand immediately appeared in his mind. Captain knows Zaraki? Yong-in, who caught up with them, panted heavily. He looked at Wu Chen, who was a little interested, and said, "That man is unreliable. Especially his spiritual pressure, it's boundless. It's no different from the infinite sea." Yushin Hush's tone had a trace of fear. You mean Zaraki? I can barely be considered to know him. Dustless naturally knew a little about this character whose name reverberated like thunder. Hearing this, Kazuto Toru's face looked strange, and immediately remembered some similarities between Wuchen and Zaraki. She widened her eyes and asked, "Is it possible that the captain and him are relatives?" Dustless's head suddenly turned black, and he shook his head resolutely. Who has such a bad relative? If there is, he would have been hacked to death long ago. Even so, Dustless couldn't help but ask curiously, "Why do you think so? I should be different from that stupid big guy." Yushin Hush's white and tender jade finger touched her chin, and immediately said seriously, "Captain and Zaraki are both monsters who like to release Ryatsu, at least this is very similar." Dustless opened his mouth and wanted to complain, but he was speechless. This seems to be the truth. In short, no matter what, that bastard named Zaraki dares to come here, if I don't let him see some blood, I, as the 11th Kenpachi, will be too incompetent. A kind man would be ridden by others, and a kind horse would be ridden by others. Previously, Wu Chen had let the challenger go out of kindness, but he was slandered as a rookie. He thought that this was a disguised sign of weakness. In this case, he can only let them bleed to clear their minds. Inside the 11th Division's building, the playground used for daily practice was surrounded by people. These were the members of the 11th Division, and without exception, they were all looking at the tall man in the center of the field with fear. This person had a fierce face, a scar on the left side of his face, his hair was bundled with a bell, and his right eye was covered with an eye patch. Not to mention challenging him, just his ferocious appearance was enough to scare the enemy to death. Sitting on his shoulder was a pink-haired, barefooted lowly. He is Zaraki. Really extraordinary, his aura seems to be more terrifying than the former Captain Onishi. That's right, maybe this Zaraki will be able to kill the new captain and become the current captain. Nonsense, I heard that the current captain once used overwhelming strength to severely injure Balegan. TSK, so what? There are rumors that Zaraki is the disciple of the head captain, and he learned kendo from the head captain. Did you see his black eye patch? I heard that it was developed by the 12th Division to suppress Zaraki's terrifying Ryatsu because his Ryatsu is too strong. The members of the 11th Division talked with relish about the unlucky captain who might die as soon as they took office. Dustless. Get out of here. Useless trash, a group of traitors. Wu Chen, who had rushed over, happened to hear the discussion of this group of bastards. He immediately scolded them mercilessly and immediately released a huge spiritual pressure to disperse them. What a sharp and domineering look. At this moment, Dustless's body was cold, and he suddenly felt a cold and excited gaze locked on him. He leisurely looked back, and an arrogant and wide face with a long and narrow knife scar came into view. He saw Zaraki staring at Dustless with eyes that wanted to eat him. Are you the new Kenpachi? Ha 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 ha. Let's fight. After a burst of arrogant and excited laughter, it was followed by an unchanging opening sentence. Although it was boring, it also showed that Zaraki was a person who loved to fight. The 11th Division now had such a person. You have a bright future, I admire you. Dustless glanced at Zaraki. He suddenly felt that this rough, straightforward, brainless, and naive person was very pleasing to the eye. He was the opposite of Aizen, who was a scheming bitch. You have strong Ryatsu, outstanding strength, and love to fight. How about this, stay in the 11th Division, and with your strength, I can give you the position of vice captain. Dustless had a sly smile on his face as he tempted. Without a doubt, this kid was the most suitable to be a fighter. He was very simple and not scheming. Although the vice captain of the 11th Division was Isshin Toru, he borrowed it from Dustless. Sooner or later, he would have to return it to Unohana Retsu. Sounds like a good idea. Zaraki's murderous aura was restrained. He was a battle maniac, he loved to fight, he loved to fight. The 11th Division was a combat division of Soul Society, the environment was suitable for him. But, the vice captain is not suitable, I want to be the real deal. Zaraki's murderous aura erupted again, and the shiny sawtooth Zanpakuto was emitting a chilling light. Is that so? I just became the captain, and you want to kick me out. Your courage is commendable. Seeing this, Dustless knew that it was useless to say more, and he immediately pulled out the first Hoshiger. Instead of a boring duel, let's raise the stakes. Dustless thought for a while, stared at Zaraki and said, if I win, you will be my vice-captain unconditionally. What if I win? Zaraki asked back. You win? You think too much, your chance of winning is 0. Chapter 991. Being ridiculed by Dustless like this, Zaraki's killing intent was even more intense. You have to be careful, the consequences of his anger will be serious. The pink-haired little loli jumped off Zaraki's shoulder and reminded Dustless in a friendly manner, and immediately left the field. Perhaps because she felt that it was too dangerous, she ran for hundreds of meters before stopping. If you don't come, I'll come first. As his voice fell, the ground trembled. Looking up, Zaraki raised his Zanpakuto full of sawtooth and rushed over like a monster. His whole body released a high-density golden ryatsu, the air was extremely hot, and the ryatsu in the air burned strangely, turning into a sea of fire. The scene was particularly spectacular. You don't even know Shuunpa. Seeing this, Dustless chuckled, then shook his head. This guy's powerful ryatsu is really a waste, because Zaraki only knows how to cut people, he doesn't know other Shinigami's fighting skills. Not to mention Kito's lethality skills, this kid doesn't even know the most basic Shuunpa. Whoosh! The biting cold wind came head-on, and at the same time, the sky darkened. Dustless was stunned, a wisp of sawtooth edge fell toward his head. Look, the unlucky captain is going to die, our 11th division is really unlucky, the new captain just took office, and now we have to hold a funeral, I'm afraid the team fee is not enough. Idiot, it's not good for us if he dies. Look at Zaraki, he's a fighting maniac, a typical madman. After becoming the captain, he will cut us like vegetables, this captain is still better. That's right, Zaraki is a complete battle maniac. The members of the 11th Division who were hiding around whispered, comparing Dustless and Zaraki, they preferred the former. Just when everyone thought that Dustless's body was going to be separated, the sawtooth Zanpakuto was stopped by someone. What? It looks scary, it turns out to be so fragile. A contemptuous and disdainful voice sounded out of thin air. Looking at the source, everyone was instantly petrified. How is this possible? You can actually catch my attack with one hand. Unbelievable, with a trembling voice, came out from Zaraki's throat. At this moment, his face was lost, and his rough old face was full of astonishment. Following his line of sight, he saw Dustless's left hand grabbing the Zanpakuto with ease. You are too weak. It's impossible for you to hurt me with your current strength. Also, I won't be as merciful as the head captain. In order to deter some people with ulterior motives, I can only release your blood to wake them up, Zaraki. His cold eyes flashed with a touch of hostility. Then, the first-generation ghost blade in his right arm vibrated. A ripple appeared in the void and everything that came into contact with this cold light instantly shattered. Zaraki was no exception. Pucci. On his chest, there was a long and narrow wound that was visible to the naked eye. Due to the depth of the wound, one could clearly see the glaring white bone. The piercing pain engulfed his entire body like a tide, spreading to his nerve endings. The pain was unbearable. Zaraki's expression was sluggish, he didn't expect himself to be so fragile. Just a face-to-face, he was instantly injured. Then this boundless disbelief turned into excitement and laughter. Ha ha ha, this feeling, it's really nostalgic. His eyes widened, and countless dense blood vessels appeared in his white eye sockets. Zaraki's hostility skyrocketed, and his momentum also skyrocketed. Even his ryatsu increased several times, and his eyes became more ferocious. Come, let's have a good fight. Make sure it's a good fight. Who is interested in playing this little game with you? Without waiting for Zaraki's voice to fall, Dustless mercilessly interrupted him. His face was indifferent, and the dazzling light gathered at the soles of his feet. He said, "This is not a fair fight, it's just a boring one-sided annihilation, that's all." Then Dustless jumped up, and the light also blasted towards Zaraki's face. Lightspeed kick. Zaraki was shocked when he saw this, but after many years of fighting, and with the training of the captain, he had already developed an extraordinary fighting heart. Whether it was consciousness, experience, or reaction speed, he was one of the top existences. He immediately picked up his Zanpakuto to block his face. Boom! Even if he blocked the attack of the light, this powerful force was beyond his imagination, and Zaraki disappeared instantly. Kakaka, the wall 100 meters away collapsed and burst into pieces, and a tall man with wounds, faintly burned, and a strange smell was lying in it. He shouldn't die so easily. Although the slash and lightspeed kick were strong, they shouldn't have hurt his life. After a few seconds of silence, Zaraki was still lying on the ground motionless. Dustless whispered. He still needs this qualified fighter. Dustless still has other things to deal with after giving the mission of the 11th Division to Zaraki. Boom boom boom, after a few breaths of time, a vast and majestic Ryatsu suddenly descended, and the particles on the ground trembled, and the entire 11th Division also swayed, as if there was a terrible earthquake. Even because the Ryatsu was too strong, everyone couldn't move an inch. Everyone was very depressed, and breathing was 100 times more difficult than before. Undying cockroach, but this is also good, I can use you to test the skills I recently learned. Dustless was not surprised when he saw this, and a Ryatsu that was not inferior to Zaraki's also erupted. Chapter 992. The chakra of physical strength was raging, and Dustless was not to be outdone. He desperately broke out without any cost. TSK TSK. This surging Ryatsu is really enviable. Perceiving the content of Zaraki's Ryatsu, Dustless said enviously, "This is still under the condition of wearing an eye mask and a lot of restraining Ryatsu props. How terrifying would it be if all of them were removed?" Thinking of this, Dustless was filled with emotion. If Zaraki can also solve Shirkai Zanpakuto in the future, or even Bankai, his strength will increase exponentially. Ha ha ha, a burst of arrogant laughter spread throughout Soul Society along with the influence of Ryatsu. That arrogant laughter made everyone frown. Although they were dissatisfied, they remained silent. This terrifying Ryatsu, it is undeniable that he indeed has the capital to look down on the heroes. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the raging storm came head-on, and the endless impact caused by Ryatsu shook the world. The dull sound was like thunder, and Zaraki also moved with the momentum. Boom boom boom, his speed was extremely fast, and his momentum was fierce. Zaraki's whole body was as heavy as a mountain, and the earth was trembling. The shocking scene left an unforgettable impression in the hearts of the onlookers. Regardless of victory or defeat, the name of Zaraki will be passed down in Soul Society in the future. Bakudo 63-6 Light Prison. 6 huge golden light belts came from all directions, binding Zaraki so that he couldn't move his body. His beast-like eyes suddenly dimmed a lot. It shouldn't be so easy to deal with him. Thinking of Zaraki's invincible Ryatsu, Dustless didn't hesitate to use other moves. Heido 63-6 Thunder Roar Cannon. A golden rainbow swept across the sky, leaving a straight ray of light in the cloudless sky, whistling straight towards Zaraki. TSK, I didn't expect this guy to be so strong. It seems that I have to go all out to resist him. Zaraki's face was a bit ugly and even horrified. With just a few simple moves, Dustless forced him to go all out to deal with it. Especially the number 63 Heido on his waist, it seemed to be much stronger than the others. Without hesitation, he took off the blindfold, and the amount of spiritual pressure increased again. What kind of monster is this kid? How can he have so much spiritual pressure? With his eyes wide open, Dustless was very surprised. He could clearly see the golden Ryatsu burning around Zaraki's body. It was extremely rough and powerful, like a golden flame, and everything that was affected by the Ryatsu would be turned into ashes. A skull completely formed by super strong Ryatsu covered Zaraki like a real entity. It was extremely hot, and white steam rose from the air. The Rokuzen light prison that was binding Zaraki was dismembered in an instant, and the thunder roar cannon that was rushing towards him was burned to ashes before it could even touch him. It's really not simple. This kind of almost solid high-strength Ryatsu defense can even compete with number 96 Hado cremation. Its power is indeed not to be underestimated. Perceiving the strength of the Ryatsu defense, Dustless nodded in surprise. In the future, Zaraki would use this move to fight against the 8th generation sword Hakamaru. In fact, this kind of rough skill was very simple. It used a large amount of Ryatsu to form a defensive or a shield. Its function was similar to Kinsusunu, both of which were extremely energy-consuming skills. It could even be regarded as a mini Kinsusunu. That's it, you are the third person I have dealt with so far. Unlike before, Zaraki changed to a two-handed sword, and the whole momentum was obviously different. It was completely different from before. A burst of invincible sword intent locked on Dustless. This guy, Dustless was slightly stunned. He raised his arm and found that his skin began to ooze red blood. He looked up subconsciously and saw a huge sword light covering him. Are you kidding me? What kind of monster is this guy? Look, all the Ryatsu in the atmosphere is burning, and the 11th division has turned into a sea of fire. Run, idiot. The members of the 11th division scrambled to escape. In a battle between monsters, they were just insignificant cannon fodder. They would be killed in seconds if they ran to the center of the battle. Around Dustless, not only the ground, but the sky turned fiery red and burned without warning, blocking Dustless's retreat. The places with Ryatsu were set on fire, and the momentum seemed to spread throughout the entire Soul Society. Farewell, former captain. As Zaraki's words fell, the Zanpakuto in his hand also fell, and the huge sword light stopped in the void also fell. Boom boom boom, the sharp and hot Ryatsu fell from the sky, and Dustless's whole body was swallowed without a trace, as if it was evaporated by the hot temperature, and the Ryatsu also disappeared. Ka ka ka, a ferocious and thick crack appeared on the ground that was hit by the heavy blow. The crack stretched for several kilometers and almost destroyed the entire 11th Division's building in seconds. Well, the Ryatsu disappeared, which means that guy is dead. Carrying the sawtooth Zanpakuto on his shoulder, Zaraki breathed a sigh of relief. When he was about to leave, his body suddenly felt a sharp pain. Puchi. A slender katana pierced through Zaraki's body, followed by a voice that wanted to cry but had no tears. Bastard, I really should have killed this idiot. The 11th division is finished, how much money will it take to rebuild it? Zaraki ignored the severe pain all over his body, and suddenly turned his head as if he saw a ghost, and Dustless came into his sight. He was unharmed. Chapter 993. Zaraki's pupils dilated, and his face showed a look of horror. For the first time in his life, he showed an expression of seeing a ghost. Impossible. Zaraki roared loudly, and even because he was too surprised, his tone was full of sharpness, and he said to himself in disbelief, is this an illusion? Puchi. The tingling pain from his chest made Zaraki's face twitch, and his whole body broke out in cold sweat uncontrollably. Ouch! Endless grief and indignation roared out from Zaraki's mouth, and the Ryatsu all over his body once again rose to a shocking level. Even because the golden Ryatsu was too dazzling, Dustless had to close his eyes. This guy is a living monster. Although I deliberately deviated from the heart, this kid should have been seriously injured after being cut, and he shouldn't be as lively as he is now. Although he closed his eyes, his observation haki was still unfolded, and Zaraki's every move couldn't escape Dustless's eyes. How do you feel? If you mess around, you will die. Looking at the bleeding Zaraki, Dustless pulled out the first-generation ghost blade, and looked at Zaraki with a pair of dull eyes, and said, it's useless to struggle. When this boring battle began, the actual outcome was already decided. Be my vice captain. Dustless gloomily looked at the flat ground that was torn apart and swallowed by the long and narrow crack. His old face turned green, and he immediately said angrily, stop, I don't want to kill you. It's not worth it to kill you, at least I can sell you to that pervert Mayuri for research, and maybe I can get some help to rebuild the 11th division. Zaraki didn't seem to appreciate it, and the boundless Ryatsu in his body, not only did it not stop, but it was stimulated by the intact dustless and desperately leaked out. Ha ha ha, a wild and bloodthirsty laughter jumped out of Zaraki's mouth, and his killing intent was endless. He once again raised his zanpakudo, and his overbearing eyes were far more ferocious than a wild beast. The desperate beast will not obey, it will only become more and more fierce and bloodthirsty. Let's fight it out. Zaraki roared loudly. His vigorous and resolute tone spread throughout the entire Soul Society. He was covered in blood, and his body was even pierced by Dustless. The bloody hole caused by Dustless's fist was clearly visible, but even so, he still rushed over with full energy. Boom boom boom. The earth trembled, and Zaraki didn't take a step forward, but the ground trembled with him. I should have told you before that this isn't a fair battle. In the end, this boring battle is just a one-sided annihilation. This is the last time I'll repeat it. Staring coldly at Zaraki, Dustless didn't hold back. This kid just needed to let him live, there was no need to be merciful. What's the captain doing? I don't know, but this Ryatsu is really terrifying. I thought that Zaraki was a monster, but it turns out that the captain is also a monster. He is not worse than Zaraki. Nonsense, he's the captain of our 11th division, the 11th Sword Aid of Soul Society. It's only natural that he's strong. TSK, you shameless fence-sitters, you just said that the captain is no match for him, and now you're changing your mind, despicable. In the distance, some of the stronger members of the 11th division were discussing and despising each other, but they were all confused by Dustless's strange posture. Raising his right arm high, his thumb pointed to the depths of the sky, his whole body was particularly cold, and his indifferent eyes looked directly at Zaraki. Hado 90, a few simple words, but it contained magic. Above the 9th heaven, the white sky fell an evil blade. Dustless quietly looked at Zaraki, only to see that this kid was still foolishly rushing over, completely ignoring the strange black light in the sky. Untactful man, shaking his head, Dustless finally said two indifferent words. Black coffin. As Dustless's voice fell, the falling black light became faster and sharper, and in the blink of an eye, it swallowed Zaraki whole. Poochie. Poochie, unlike before, the black coffin obviously wasn't at full strength this time. There was no black coffin, only a few intersecting black light cut Zaraki. Puff. The cold light flashed, Zaraki's flesh was cut open, and finally he fell to the ground unwillingly. Although it didn't cut him into pieces, the kid's body was almost covered in blood, bruises all over, it was a horrible sight. So strong, Zaraki finally closed his eyes unwillingly, his breath was weak, if he ignored it, he would die without a doubt. You're too cruel, Chinkuen. A beautiful figure descended from the sky. Her calm, elegant, and gentle face fell into Dustless's eyes. He looked up and saw the captain's snow-white hair fluttering in the wind. Her expression was calm and tranquil. Her temperament of standing aloof from worldly affairs made people feel particularly serene. Captain Unohana, you're too serious, I've heard that this kid is tough, he's still breathing. Dustless chuckled, looking calm. His control of power was excellent, except for his heart and some important organs, the rest of his body was damaged. Moreover, looking at Unohana Retsu's face, Dustless's lips curled up, revealing an unfathomable arc, and said seriously, if I didn't beat him half to death, Captain Unohana's superb medical skills wouldn't be revealed. Doesn't that mean that I should thank you? Hearing this, Unohana Retsu rolled her eyes and shook her head. After becoming the captain, Chinkuen has become more talkative than before. Unohana Retsu's beautiful face bloomed with a gentle smile, like a ray of sunlight, warming one's heart. But Dustless's face was filled with disgust. He knew that Unohana Retsu had the attribute of being two-faced. Chapter 994. Sure enough, Unohua Lai's beautiful eyes narrowed into crescent moons. She stared at Wuchen with a smile on her face. Her lips curved into a light smile that was full of charm. She was bewitching but not flirtatious. Every frown and smile tugged at one's heart. But in Dustless's eyes, it was quite horrifying, giving him a gloomy feeling instead. Cough cough, Dustless awkwardly coughed and said seriously, Yon will return to the 4th Division tomorrow. I have to thank her for these past few days. I also have to thank Captain Unohana for accommodating me. As a new captain, there were naturally many things that needed to be dealt with. Dustless, who did not understand the role of a captain, had no choice but to ask Yon Toru to help him. As a result, he barely managed to survive until now. A captain was extremely busy. Not everyone could be as relaxed as Zaraki Kenpachi in the future, who could even sleep when he had nothing to do. Is it just a verbal thank you? Unohana Retsu said meaningfully. Her smile was even more cunning than Jin Ikamaru. Captain Unohana is referring to, Dustless's body trembled. To be honest, Unohana Retsu's smile was very uncomfortable. He felt extremely uncomfortable and had goosebumps all over his body. In Dustless's eyes, Unohana Retsu, who was right in front of him, was even more terrifying than Vastolord. Captain Unohana, if there's anything I can help with, just tell me. Dustless suppressed the strange feeling in his heart and said bluntly. He patted his chest and promised solemnly. In the half a year that he had been in Soul Society, Unohana Retsu had taken care of Dustless quite a bit. If she needed help, Dustless would definitely not reject her. Since you said so, I won't go easy on you when you need help. Unohana Retsu lightly smiled and nodded. Then, a blue halo suddenly appeared from her jade hands and began to heal Zaraki's wounds. Purposely avoiding the vital parts of his body was a piece of cake for her. What an unlucky year. The past few days have been really unlucky. Casually sitting on a rock, Dustless sighed as he looked around at the destroyed 11th Division. Even if he wanted to ask Yamamoto for money, he probably wouldn't be able to, so he could only brace himself and ask Unohana Retsu, I've been tight on money for the past few days, so if it's convenient for Captain Unohana, I wonder if you could lend me. At this point, Dustless fell silent, his old face turning green. Are you trying to borrow money, Chenjun? Unohua Lai saw through Dustless's intentions. Her eyes glowed with surprise. After being seen through by Unohana, Dustless felt extremely conflicted. It was truly difficult to borrow money from a woman, but in the end, he could not deny it and nodded his head. Dustless's money was indeed tight, he could even be said to be penniless. At the same time, he didn't forget to fiercely glare at Zaraki. Once this kid refused to be his hatchet man, Dustless would send Zaraki to Mayuri of the 12th Division. He believed that Mayuri would be very interested in this undying monster. He could exchange it for a large sum of money to repair the 11th Division. That's not a problem. Money is useless to me, and it's also useless to have a lot of money on hand. The 11th Division was destroyed by the two of you, and it does need to be rebuilt. This was caused by a private fight. It's already a blessing that the head captain did not scold you, and it's even more impossible for him to give you the money to repair it. You'll have to think of a way yourself. Unohana Lai spoke in an orderly manner. Things that were caused by oneself must be dealt with by oneself. This was the rule of Soul Society. Of course I know this. After all, I'm not as rich as Shumu's family. I don't even have a single cent. Captain Unohana definitely wouldn't want me to sleep on the streets. Dustless ridiculed helplessly. He did not forget to curse Zaraki in his heart. It was all because of this kid's recklessness that the 11th Division was completely destroyed. Dustless even had the thought of robbing Shumu's family. A hero without money would be trapped to death. That's right, suddenly remembering something, Dustless slapped his forehead. His eyes looked at the captain's haori that he was wearing, and his headache disappeared. He suddenly felt enlightened. Could it be? Seeing Dustless's relieved and proud expression, Unohana Lai vaguely understood what he was thinking. She did not know whether to laugh or cry as she said, You're not planning to sell the captain's haori, are you? Why not? Dustless glanced at the shocked Unohana Lai and asked. He then went straight to the point and said, Since the captain's haori is useless to me, why not sell it for some money? Unohana Lai's eyes darkened. She did not expect the usually intelligent Dustless to have such a strange side. She shook her head and denied, this represents the captain's identity. Even if you want to sell something like the captain's Heori, who would dare to buy it? Buying the captain's Heori? No one in Seoul society would be that bold. I can lend you the money, but I have a condition. Chinjun, hearing this, Dustless was stunned. He then said seriously, Captain Unohana Lai, just say what you want. You've helped me countless times in Seoul society. You're treating me like an outsider now. Allah Allah Allah. Chinjun is so straightforward. Seeing Dustless being so straightforward, Unohana Lai nodded her head in satisfaction. She put down the work she was doing and moved closer to Dustless. Her watery eyes circled around him. Because they were so close, they could even hear each other's breathing. Captain Unohana, you, Dustless twisted his body uncomfortably. He could even smell the faint fragrance of Unohana Lai's body. He could not help but choke. Just as he was about to ask, Unohana Lai suddenly moved closer to Dustless's ear. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's, but the content of her words shocked Dustless. Did I hear wrong? Are you sure you want me to do that, Captain Unohana? After a while, Dustless looked at Unohana Lai suspiciously. Chapter 995. Dustless's eyes widened, and he couldn't even breathe properly. Captain Unohana, no, women can't be underestimated. What Unohana Retsu just said was to ask Dustless to keep an eye on Sosuke Aizen. I don't know why, but I feel like there's something wrong with Captain Aizen. Sometimes, he's too calm in the face of certain things. It's like he knows everything. It's really hard to sleep and eat well. Her voice was filled with worry and caution. Unohana Lai lowered her voice to a volume that only Wu Chen and herself could hear. Hearing this, Wu Chen smiled mysteriously and asked curiously, where is it exactly? If Captain Unohana wants me to keep an eye on Aizen, you should at least point me in a direction. This. Unohana hesitated for a moment before smiling bitterly. Chinjun, I'm not afraid of you laughing at me, but this feeling is completely baseless. Sometimes, even I think it's an illusion. In reality, it's just my intuition. To put it more simply, it's just my own guess. Dustless rolled his eyes. People say that a woman's intuition is very accurate, and it seems like it's true. There's no need for Captain Unrestrained Flower to tell me, I understand, Dustless readily agreed. This matter was nothing to him. Moreover, even if Dustless didn't pay attention to Aizen, Sosuke Aizen wouldn't let him go so easily. Maybe he was hiding in some unknown corner, observing Dustless's every move. In fact, it was just as Dustless guessed. Aizen was indeed paying attention to him right now. In the central 46 room, blood flowed like a river, and there was a despairing silence. Because of the time, the blood on the ground had even solidified. In the basement of central room 46, there was a large, well-equipped laboratory. There were a few people working, and the mysterious person was staring at the LCD screen. If we want to deal with Captain Unohana, based on the current situation, we have to count her in as well. Ikamaru Jin frowned deeply as he said seriously. What ability does that brat have? In less than half a year, he managed to trick the captain of Uno Flower into joining his faction. Was our previous plan too stupid, or was the captain of the 11th Division too cunning? Dong Xianyao's face was ashen, and his voice was extremely hoarse. Sosuke Aizen was expressionless as he quietly observed Dustless talking to Unohana through the LCD screen. A fierce light flashed in his eyes. Let him be captain for a few more days, we'll deal with him when we're ready. Aizen's success was mainly due to his ability to grasp the right timing and analyze the strength of both sides. Now was not the time to have a falling out with Dustless and Seoul society. At the very least, he had to wait until he created the Hogyoku. Revenge was a dish best served cold, so there was no need to worry about temporary gains and losses. Hurry up and bring Hogyoku here. The Hogyoku must be made quickly. Time waits for no one. The recent developments are completely different from my previous plan. Aizen's eyes flashed with hesitation as he made up his mind. Recently, he had been feeling uneasy, but he couldn't explain it clearly. Everything is for this plan. This time, we must be able to make the Hogyoku break the boundary between Hollow and Shinigami, and step into the realm of gods with a mortal body. East Sensei was Aizen's most loyal dog, and his face was full of enthusiasm. In the past, he often failed. The biggest reason was that his soul was not enough. Now that he had captured a captain alive and integrated it into the creation of the Hogyoku, his soul power would increase exponentially. The captain's soul would be dozens of times stronger than an ordinary Shinigami. Time flew by, and 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. In the first team's building, the captains gathered, including Dustless. This was the first time he attended a captain's meeting. During this time, Zaraki was persuaded by Dustless to join the 11th team and become a vice-captain. Whenever there was a grand void or a riot in Soul Society, he would always be the first to come out. The head captain was quite happy about this. After all, Zaraki was his disciple to some extent. Head captain. Everyone was silent. Dustless immediately stood up and pointed at Hueco Mundo. Last time, Silent Soul Society was attacked by Balegang. We should immediately retaliate against Hueco Mundo. Aizen's old face twitched slightly, and he tried to stop him. Balegang has fallen in Soul Society. Without the existence of the king of Hueco Mundo, the entire Hueco Mundo will fall into chaos. All the grand voids will be fighting for the throne. We should just watch from the sidelines. There is no need to go to Hueco Mundo. How could he let Dustless have his way? Listening to his decisive tone, it was obvious that he wanted to kill all the Vasto Lord in Hueco Mundo. In the future, Aizen was counting on the grand voids to destroy the Shinigami. How could he let Dustless destroy them now? Yamamoto shook his head. He also thought it was impossible. This time, he chose to stand on Aizen's side. Captain Aizen is right. Hueco Mundo has already fallen into chaos. There is no need for the Shinigami to interfere. Aizen followed the head captain's tone and said, and the number of voids and Shinigami must be balanced. If the ratio is too high, it will lead to the destruction of the entire world. Bullshit destruction. Dustless scolded in his heart. In the future, all the grand voids died in the Battle of Kazucho, but the world didn't collapse. To put it bluntly, Aizen's words were to protect the Vasto Lord in Hueco Mundo. Chapter 996. Aizen looked like he was alone, but he had a lot of influence. Hueco Mundo was his backyard, and Soul Society still had East Sensei and Jin. Not only that, East Sensei had a good relationship with Sajin, while Aizen had a good relationship with Yukitake Jushiro and Shunsui Kayakura. There were 13 captains in Soul Society's Godai 13, and more than half of them were directly related to Aizen. Captains like Soifan and Kuchiki Byakuya rarely spoke, but Aizen was able to fool most captains with his good-natured face. Other than Aizen and Dustless, everyone else in the Godai 13 had a good relationship. Many vice-captains respected Aizen. Aizen has accumulated so many hidden pawns, I need to get rid of them first. Staring at East Sensei and Ikimara Jin, Wu Chen was thinking of a countermeasure. East Sensei wanted to get close to Aizen, but Ikimara Jin was just pretending to be obedient. After thinking for a while, Dustless decided to deal with East Sensei first. Captain East Sensei, looking at Dong Xianya with ill intentions, Wu Chen asked pointedly, "A while ago, a few of my subordinates and my colleagues from the 9th Division went to drink. After getting drunk, I accidentally heard the members of the 9th Division say that 2 months ago, they had captured Phoenix Bridge Rokuro. He inexplicably disappeared." This casual sentence caught the attention of all captains, and they all looked at East Sensei. "You're overthinking this." East Sensei was an extraordinary person to be able to climb to the position of captain. He said calmly, 10 days ago, Central Room 46 ordered me to execute Kikuhashi Rokujiro in secret. I didn't dare to publicize it because he controls Hollow and Shinigami. Central Room 46 was afraid of causing unnecessary trouble, so they ordered me to execute him in secret. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. After that, East Sensei bowed to the captains, blaming himself. I think you guys are the ones who used it for experiments. Dustless snorted coldly in his heart and chose to continue his attack. Dustless's eyes narrowed into crescents as he chuckled inwardly. Then, he praised loudly, the relationship between Captain Dongxian and the sages of Central Room 46 is so harmonious that it makes others jealous. Every time there was an accident or when the mission failed, they would stand up for you. We're all captains, so why is there such a huge gap between us? These words caused all the captains to look at East Deity Yao. It wasn't just Higashi-sensei, but also Aizen Sosuke and Ikamaru Jin. Every time something happened to them, Central 46 would stand up and protect them. That's normal. Dongxian is observant and can do what others can't. Furthermore, Central Room 46 is made up of 46 sages. Naturally, they can see that Captain Dongxian is doing his best for Soul Society. It's normal for them to sympathize with him, said a tall man with an airtight head. This person was the captain of the 7th Division, Zhua Zhen. That damned bear really isn't a good person. As soon as he saw East Sensei in danger, he immediately came to his rescue. Dustless sighed inwardly. Soul Society was in such a situation. The trio led by Aizen had connections throughout Soul Society. Whether it was the Central 46, the captains, or the vice-captains, they all had a deep relationship with Aizen. Defeating him with schemes was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Once Aizen, Ikamaru Jin, or East Sensei were attacked, someone would stand up and help them. Captain Dustless, just as Dustless was planning how to trap Aizen, he spoke first, displeased. You just took office and you're already suspecting the other captains. This doesn't seem right. That's right. We're all captains, so we can trust each other. Yukitake Jushiro had a good personal relationship with Aizen, so he stood up to help. Shunsui lowered his hat. Although he didn't speak, everyone knew about his relationship with Yukitake. Only a pedantic person would question the orders of the Central 46. The 11th Division is indeed a bunch of beasts. Keiki Byakuya opened his eyes and said coldly. Without exception, everyone's spearhead was directed at Dustless. It could be said to have aroused public anger all at once. That's enough. Captain Dustless is right. The Central 46 dared to hide this from me. After a while, I'll go and punish them. Yamamoto's face was filled with dissatisfaction. He waved his hand. I'm not feeling well today. The meeting ends here. Please go back. Inside the 4th Division's building. Chinkun, you know that Aizen has a lot of connections. Why did you deliberately confront him? Unohana Retsu wrinkled her nose, dissatisfied with Dustless's risky actions today. Because of Aizen, you've angered all the captains. It's not worth it. Not worth it? Not necessarily. Dustless drank the tea in his mouth and smiled mysteriously. Unohana forgot about someone. He helped me today. Unohana Retsu didn't remember who helped Dustless. Almost everyone was criticizing Dustless. Even Keiki Byakuya, who rarely spoke, jumped out. You mean, the head captain? Unohana Retsu was shocked. The head captain was the only one who spoke for Dustless today. Yes, it's him. Dustless didn't deny it and sneered. The head captain is in charge of the Godii 13. Today, more than half of the captains spoke for Aizen. Even his 2 students, Shunsui and Jushiro Yukitake, are on the same side as Aizen. What will the head captain think? Aizen should have been the head captain, but now it was Sosuke Aizen. One could imagine how the head captain felt. He would definitely hold a grudge against Aizen in the future. If Aizen can win over the captains, we can do the same. He'll definitely stand on our side in the future. He might even try to suppress Aizen. Dustless smiled. Chapter 997. If Aizen can win over the captains, we can do the same to the head captain. In the future, he will definitely stand on our side and even try to suppress Aizen. Dustless smiled evilly. Unohana nodded. On the surface, it seemed like Aizen had won, but in reality, the head captain was wary of him. More than half of the captains in Soul Society supported Aizen. How could the head captain have any face left? You're really treacherous, Unohana sighed and touched her forehead. She suddenly felt a headache. Of course, she was worried about Aizen. Treacherous? Dustless rolled his eyes and looked at Unohana. He didn't think he went too far. There can't be two suns in the sky, and there can't be two rulers. Not only was Aizen Sosuke targeted, but there was also Yawatch. Dustless wouldn't let him off easily. Dustless would only be at ease if they were dead. That so-called Hogyoku should be completed soon. Thinking of the Ryatsu that disappeared, Dustless smirked. He let Aizen be proud for a while today, but it wasn't without a price. In exchange, the Hogyoku will belong to Dustless in the future. Chinkun, what are you smiling about? You're so cunning. Unknowingly, Unohua heard Dustless's sinister laughter and his dark expression. Immediately, she felt uneasy. I'm thinking about how to deal with Aizen. Dustless felt a chill. To be honest, he was very wary of Unohana, a woman with sharp intuition and quick thinking. Smart women were sometimes very likable, but sometimes, they were also very annoying. Wandless Empire was surrounded by ice mountains. The environment was cold and gloomy. He's dead? The temperature was extremely low. Inside the palace, which should have been a forbidden zone for living creatures, a human voice rang out. What's the name of the Grim Reaper captain who killed Busby? Which team is he from? Also, tell me the details of your battle. The person who asked the question had exquisite facial features, a cold expression, and a noble bearing. It was the commander of the Stern Cross Knights, Jugram. While Yawatch was in hibernation, Jugram had been given the mask of the ruler. All matters of the Wandless Empire were under Jugram's control. His words carried enormous weight, and no one dared to go against his will. Those who knew Jugram would know that he rarely got angry, but at this moment, Candace heard a rare hint of anger from him. Of course, there was also a strong killing intent. That death god captain. How did he know about these secrets? Strange, could it be that there are other spies in the Wandless Empire besides me? Candace asked herself honestly. Only a few people in Wandless Empire knew about the relationship between Busby and Jugram. The two had known each other for almost 1,000 years and could be considered close friends. Now that Jugram was angry, it was reasonable. The person who killed Busby that day wasn't the captain of the Grim Reapers. He seemed to be the vice-captain of the 4th Division, but his strength was beyond imagination. He was much more terrifying than the usual captain-level Grim Reapers. Candace explained according to Dustless instructions. Hearing this, a hint of surprise appeared on Jugram's expressionless face. He glanced at Candace coldly and waved his right hand, which was thinner than a woman's, indicating that Candace could leave. Do we need to get rid of him immediately? Candace turned around and asked as she turned to leave. There's no need. Busby will never die, never. Jugram's answer was very light, but it was filled with confidence and certainty. Busby was very important. He was a rare fighting force, and Wandless Empire couldn't do without him. When His Majesty wakes up in the future, he will definitely have the ability to revive him. For normal people, this is as difficult as ascending to the heavens, but for His Majesty, it's a piece of cake. As Yawatch's confidant, Jugram naturally understood his abilities. I'll take my leave. Candace's expression froze when she heard this. She clenched her fist without leaving a trace, but she still chose to leave. Jugram's strength was second only to Yawatch in the Wandless Empire. Blindly challenging him would only bring about their own destruction. They were not in the same dimension. Inside the Soul Society, Dustless also returned from the 4th Division to the 11th Division. Because it was a combat division, most of the 11th Division's missions were combat. Therefore, Dustless threw all the responsibilities to Zaraki. After all, he liked to kill. Boom boom boom. Dustless, who had just fallen asleep, was awakened by a strange spiritual pressure. His eyes instantly widened. This spiritual pressure. It's not as cold and noble as the Grim Reaper's, nor is it as bloodthirsty as the Void's spiritual pressure. Sensing the difference in the spiritual pressure, Dustless muttered. He looked at the sky in the distance and was shocked to find that the spiritual pressure was surging from East Deity Fortress's 9th Division. Giving me a pillow when I'm sleepy. The heavens didn't abandon me. Dustless sneered and disappeared in a single stride. He had always disliked East Deity Fortress's blind man, who often jumped out to fight him. He was an eyesore, and now he might be able to use this opportunity to teach him a lesson. Even if he couldn't kill him, he would at least kick him out of his position as captain. Your suitable target has appeared. There's work to do, Zaraki. Dustless appeared in the 11th Division and said to the excited Zaraki. He was a simple-minded person, so it was easy to trick him. Chapter 998. The reason why the captain was called the captain was because he was different from ordinary people in all aspects. The mysterious Ryatsu had attracted the attention of the entire Soul Society. All the captains realized that something was wrong. They released their Ryatsu and rushed towards the 9th Division like cannonballs. Hee, Dustless's sinister laughter came from the horizon. He already vaguely guessed what this special spiritual pressure fluctuation was. Hogyoku. Damn you, Aizen. Do you really think you can just let this go? In your dreams. The medium in Rokuro's soul has finally awakened. Thinking of the importance of the Hogyoku, Wuchin's pace was faster. He turned his head and looked down at the blockhead behind him. He rolled up a storm and suddenly scolded in a bad mood, "Hurry up, Zaraki. This guy doesn't even know the most basic Shunpa. Bastard, what's going on? Why is this happening? Give me an explanation." In the dark laboratory, Aizen's face was livid. He looked at the ball in his hand in disbelief. A large amount of Ryatsu was leaking out of it. I don't understand this either, Aizen-sama. East Senpai was bitter. He didn't know why the moment the Hogyoku was made, the Ryatsu inside began to riot and swept across Soul Society. The explosion of Ryatsu was one thing, but Rokuro's Ryatsu was also in it. This was bad. Before, East Senpai had to report Rokuro's death to the head captain. Now that his Ryatsu was in such a mysterious ball, he couldn't explain it even if he had 100 mouths. Bastard, what did I do wrong? Aizen was shocked. He felt a chill run down his spine as cold sweat dripped down his back. He could feel several spiritual presences sweeping towards him. The fastest ones were Dustless and Zaraki. They rushed over like lightning. There was no reasonable explanation for the sudden change in the situation. Sosuke Aizen's plan was about to fail. Boom boom boom. The golden light covered the sky. The Hogyoku's Ryatsu erupted even more. Aizen tried to suppress it with his own Ryatsu, but he couldn't do it. Aizen stared at the Hogyoku's Ryatsu. That's not right. This golden light is somewhat familiar. Aizen said after observing for a few seconds. When he first came to Soul Society, Dustless used a similar golden light to defeat Yen Cheng's Sword 8. Could it be the captain of the 11th Division? As his thoughts sank, Aizen's murderous intent surged. His entire being was filled with fatal danger. I don't think so. If he knew that we were developing something like Hogyoku, I'm afraid that he would have already reported it to the head captain. Ikamaru Jin interrupted. Aizen's eyes flickered as he stared at Dong Xianyao. Dong Xianyao's heart skipped a beat. Dong Xianyao felt a chill down his spine. He quickly got down on one knee and said, I am absolutely loyal to Aizen-sama. The Hogyoku riot had nothing to do with me. I am innocent. Aizen didn't deny it. He knew that East Sage was loyal to him. Get up, Yao. You have worked with me for many years. I can feel that your heart has never changed. Aizen continued helplessly, but this time, someone needs to take the blame. This is the 9th division. In short, you can't stay by my side anymore. Escape to Hueco Mundo. Baligan has fallen. Someone must take the position of King of Hueco Mundo. You will manage Hueco Mundo for me in the future. Dong Xianyao wasn't an idiot. He understood that Aizen wanted to sacrifice him. He would take all the blame. Yao, I know you feel wronged and unwilling, but don't forget your righteousness. Temporarily hibernating is for the sake of a better future. Aizen patiently persuaded Dong Xianyao. Then, under Ikamaru Jin's surprised gaze, he unsheathed Kyoka Suigetsu. Puchi. Dong Xianyao's chest burst open. Aizen stuffed the half-finished Hogyoku into Dong Xianyao's chest. I'll give you the Hogyu for the time being. Betray Soul Society immediately and fight with the captains to test their strength. Of course, if the situation permits, you can kill the captain of the 11th Division, Wu Chen. Understood, Aizen-sama. Dong Xianyao was so grateful that he almost cried. He looked at the Hogyoku in his chest. This was the best proof of Aizen's trust in him. If Dustless was here, he would have scoffed. This was only a half-finished Hogyoku. Aizen wouldn't care about it. Apart from that, Dong Xianyao couldn't tame the Hogyoku. If Dong Xianyao could use the Hogyoku to kill Dustless, it would be best. Even if he couldn't, Dong Xianyao could escape to Hueco Mundo and help Aizen manage the chaotic Hueco Mundo. At the same time, he could gain Dong Xianyao's trust and continue working for him. Killing several birds with one stone. Aizen would certainly do this. In the end, the Hogyoku would still belong to him. He was just lending it to Dong Xianyao. Boom boom boom. A berserk spiritual pressure spread out like a tide, covering the entirety of Quiet Soul Society. Compared to before, this violent spiritual pressure seemed to have taken stimulants, increasing by dozens of times. Dustless looked up and saw a black light rushing towards him. It was extremely fast, 5,000 meters, 3,000 meters. 100 meters, the distance was rapidly shortened. In the end, it was completely exposed to Dustless. Dong Xianyao. You came just in time. Dustless's eyes were cold. He fearlessly raised his sword to meet the attack. Chapter 999. Dustless frowned as he noticed East Sensei's abnormality. When did this half-baked kid reach this level? Although Dustless never fought with East Sensei, he knew about him. In the Godai 13, East Sensei's strength was in the middle. Even when he turned into a phantom, his strength was average. Huh? Is that a glowing pearl? Hogyoku? Dustless immediately noticed that there was an obvious wound on East Sensei's chest, and it was filled with a mysterious glowing pearl. No wonder this kid improved so much, it's because of the Hogyoku. East Sensei's speed and Ryatsu changed after the baptism of the Hogyoku. His eyes were bloodshot, and his body was filled with murderous intent. Idiot, it seems like the Hogyoku is controlling you, not the other way around. Well, with your weak strength, you shouldn't be able to control the Hogyoku. He aimed his palm at the eastern deity and was about to give him a fatal blow when an unexpected voice rang out. Heido number 73, Double Lotus Blue Flame Fall. A blazing flame attack rose from the ground and instantly engulfed East Sensei. He got rid of the suspicion too quickly. Looking at the two figures on the ground, Dustless was helpless. Looking at them, he saw Jin and Aizen Sosuke. And the one who activated the 73rd Heido was Sosuke Aizen. Bang bang bang. In the cloudless sky, several black figures appeared. In the blink of an eye, the captains of the Godai 13 rushed over. Captain Dongxian, give this old man an explanation. What's going on with you in your current state? Head Captain Yamamoto said in a deep voice. A fiery red halo was emitted from his back. It's the same as the Masked Legion. No, it's even more thorough than them. Dustless explained. At this moment, East Sensei's body was overflowing with white sticky Ryatsu. In the blink of an eye, East Sensei was back to normal. Explanation? Old man, are you blind? The facts have already explained everything. What else do you need to explain? Thinking of Aizen's order, East Senpai had to take the blame. Bale Gang invaded Soul Society before, and this time, I was the one who secretly hurt Phoenix Bridge Rokuro. In order to prevent Dustless from nagging about these matters in the future, Aizen had East Sage bear all the sins. In any case, he was going to betray Soul Society and go to Hueco Mundo. Bearing a few more sins would dispel the captain's doubts. This was very suitable. Dong Xian, why did you betray Soul Society? East Deity Yu's good friend, Sajin of Omura, said in grief, did you forget that we were together? I made that up to Yuzu, Kimura, so that we can work together to uphold justice in Soul Society? What a joke. Soul Society is a place I want to destroy, how can I protect it? East Deity Xiang roared with a crazed expression, his hysterical tone was filled with deep hatred for Soul Society. Captain East Sage, if Soul Society did something wrong, you can tell us. There's no need to make things like this. Aizen also looked heartbroken. Kiki. Just a mere Sosuke Aizen, shut up. If you're willing to go to hell and stretch out your necks for punishment, I can consider giving up my current power. East Sage said arrogantly, then pointed at Aizen and cursed, if you can't do it, then get out of my way. Best actor and best supporting actor, such acting skills, Kiki. Wuchen looked at the scene in front of him with interest. The skills of these two professional actors had reached the realm of perfection. One was cold and ruthless, and the other couldn't bear it. When they cooperated, the audience burst into tears. Head captain, Dustless couldn't stand it anymore. He turned to Yamamoto and said in a low voice, Captain East Sage has fallen to the evil path, we should eliminate him immediately. Humph, don't talk nonsense. East Sage must have been tempted, it must be those bastards from the masquerade. Sajin of Omura stood up for East Sage before he could say anything. You're lying to yourself. Twitching his mouth in disdain, Wuchen directly ignored this black bear. His eyes fell on the head captain, waiting for his reply. At this moment, East Deity was about to go berserk. Her rationality was swallowed by the Hogyoku and she became a killing machine. If you can capture him alive, then do your best. If you can't, then eliminate him. Yamamoto wasn't a soft-hearted person. He had lived for more than 2,000 years, his wisdom and experience far exceeded ordinary people. There were too many mysteries surrounding East Sage, even if he captured him alive, he still had many questions to ask. Of course, he couldn't capture him alive. If he resisted, he would be eliminated on the spot. Capture me alive? Dream on, you bunch of death gods. Dong Xianyao sneered. Shortly after, he casually swiped his right arm in the air. Caw caw caw, sounds rang out, revealing an incomparably long and narrow black cavity. The other side was connected to Hueco Mundo, they could still hear the howls of great voids. Colluding with Hueco Mundo, the evidence is conclusive, Dustless pulled out his sword from its scabbard. His eyes were like torches, and there was a threatening chill in his eyes. He stepped on the void and rushed forward, turning into a raging lightning bolt. Ow ow ow. Jillian's roar resounded through the sky. The captains didn't hesitate to surround him. As for East Sage, they left it to Dustless to deal with him. It seems that the development of the Hogyoku hasn't succeeded yet. Although East Sage is above the captain level, he is far from Aizen's level. The two sides are completely incomparable. Wuchen thought to himself. The current Eastern Deity Lord was just a drop in the ocean compared to Hogyulan Ran. Chapter 1000. The Hogyoku transformed East Sensei Yao was overflowing with Ryatsu. His whole body was covered with high-density ryatsu. He was very arrogant. He pointed his sword at the sky. Even East Sensei Yao's body had the characteristics of a hollow physique. His skin was wrapped in white bones, which was very disgusting. His ryatsu was like milk. You still have a long way to go. With a sneer, Dustless appeared behind East Sensei Yao with a flash step and swept his Zanpakuto. Clang! The bright sparks extinguished, and the Zanpakuto collided with a horrifying roar. East Sage wanted to easily defend against Dustless's attack. Sensing the surging ryatsu in her body, East Sage wanted to report her confidence index. Go to hell, you eyesore. East Sensei Yao, who was gradually losing his mind due to the Hogyoku, roared. His hatred erupted uncontrollably. Since Dustless came to Soul Society, Aizen's nightmare began. The initiator of all of this was Dustless. Boom boom boom. A huge red light condensed in his mouth, and a giant void flash was instantly formed. The dangerous fluctuation on it was enough to destroy the entire 9th Division. Ha ha ha, East Sensei Yao said proudly while condensing the void flash. I know you can dodge it, but, if you don't, the entire 9th Division will be in trouble. These venomous words were spread throughout the entirety of Quiet Soul Society in an instant, as their spiritual pressure wreaked havoc. Captain East Sensei, hearing these words, the members of the 9th Division turned ashen. They all widened their eyes and looked up at Dong Xian, who was fighting with Dustless in the sky. At this moment, they all thought it was a dream. The gentle captain who usually respected them was now exceptionally cold and heartless. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A large void flash blasted out, leaving a mark in the void along the way. The void flash violently twisted and changed. The void flash was far more powerful than the late-stage Arcana break, Wang Su's flash. As expected of someone who can break the boundary between Reaper and Void. Although this Hogyoku is only a half-finished product, it can still increase East Sensei Yao's strength by several levels. Wu Chen sighed with emotion in his heart. He sensed that the penetrating power of the void flash seemed to want to tear him apart. However, Wu Chen just smiled. The golden light gathered on the blade of the first-generation ghost blade. It was also filled with murderous intent. This time, he was going to kill Aizen's loyal dog, East Sensei Yao. Buzz buzz buzz, a crisp rumble rang out from the tip of the first-generation ghost blade. The blade was resplendent and bright, and a high density of spiritual pressure covered it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A gigantic slash formed entirely from an extremely strong spiritual pressure shot out. It was even stronger than East Deity Yu's void flash, and the incoming flash was instantly sliced apart. How could he be so strong? I have integrated with the Hogyoku and should be invincible. East Deity shouted out in shock. The aura of death assaulted his nostrils. His nerves immediately reacted and he responded. Bakudo 81, Sky Breaker. A transparent wall blocked in front of him, defending against the golden sword pressure that was about to cut through the sky. Sensing the sharpness of the sword pressure, East Deity was afraid that he would not be able to withstand it and would use the Way of Binding again. Way of Binding, 81, Sky Shattering. 2 transparent walls appeared in front of him. East Sensei Yao was relieved. Humph. Fusing with Hogyoku? With your strength? Do you think you're Aizen Sosuke? Dustless snorted at East Sensei Yao's arrogant words. East Sensei Yao was only borrowing the power of Hogyoku temporarily. He was still far from being able to fully fuse with it. Aizen saw this and lent East Sensei Yao the Hogyoku. East Sensei Yao was still a few hundred years away from mastering it. Although the Hogyoku in front of him was defective, it was still difficult to master. Looking at the sword pressure coming down, Dong Xianyao casually said, "If I use Sky Shattering with all my strength, it should be able to crack crack crack." Before he could finish his words, a crack appeared on Sky Shattering sword. Gulp. East Sensei Yao choked in disbelief. His eyes almost fell out. This was not a wall that could defend against Hado 89 and below. It was clearly a piece of paper that could be broken with a single strike. But even so, the power of the attack was weakened a lot. Dao Breaker 88, Flying Dragon Strikes the Thief. A dazzling light appeared and cut through the sky. The two powerful attacks inevitably collided. Because the Ryatsu giant slash was weakened, it cancelled out the nothingness. Cry, green insect. East Sensei Yao sensed Dustless's danger and didn't dare to be careless. He didn't hesitate to release his Zanpakuto and his strength increased again. Clear insect second style, red flying locust. Countless sharp blades fell like a rainstorm. They were like tracking missiles with a tail that could automatically navigate. The attacks were extremely ruthless. It seemed like they wanted to punch Dustless into a bloody hole. This kind of child's play again. You dare to keep it for Bankai. I really don't know where you get your confidence from. Dustless curled his lips in contempt. East Sensei Yao thought that he could be reborn with the power of the Hogyoku and become arrogant. At the same time, a large amount of Ryatsu erupted from his body and a transparent wall appeared in front of him. Bakudo 81, Sky Breaker. Clang clang clang. The concentrated attacks all landed on Sky Breaker and were instantly blocked. They were unable to move forward and were all blocked outside the transparent wall. They were unable to move at all. Behind him, Wu Chen was safe and sound. His expression was lazy. This is ridiculous. They are both Bakudo 81, why is the difference so big? East Sensei Yao's face turned black and couldn't help but be angry. The sky severance, that he released with all his strength was torn into nothingness like a piece of paper. On the other hand, Wu Chen's sky severance was very firm and did not even have the most basic reaction. Chapter 1001. East Sensei was absent-minded, and his bloodthirsty eyes lost their luster. Heido 31, Cannonball. The pink light disappeared in an instant, and East Sensei, who was absent-minded, was hit directly. Boom boom boom. The dull explosion attracted everyone's attention, and a huge flame burned in the void. East Sensei. East Sensei's good friend, Sajin, was furious, and his eyes were as round as a fist. He shouted at Dustless, if anything happens to East Sensei, I will make sure you die with him. But Dustless did not even look at him. A ferocious tiger would not turn its head because of a mad dog's roar. Bang bang bang. Beside Sakumura, a man covered in blood and carrying a broadsword suddenly appeared. His ferocious appearance made people not dare to look at him directly. Azuma laughed almost crazily and said, to be honest, I also don't like that captain, but I have to admit that he is very powerful. For the time being, I can't beat him. Although Zaraki was arrogant, it didn't mean that he was stupid. When he fought Dustless, he was toyed with, and he didn't even touch Dustless's body. But if it's you, I'm sure I can cut you into pieces. Zaraki had already raised his Zanpakuto, and the sawtooth blade reflected a soul-stirring light, making people shudder. Boom boom boom. Zwajin, who was so angry that he started laughing, almost went berserk. His nose was crooked from anger. A mere vice-captain dared to provoke him? He immediately unleashed his captain-level spiritual pressure, which was as boundless as the ocean, causing the ground to tremble. In an instant, they were in the gravity field. Everyone was carrying 1,000 pounds of weight, and it was difficult for them to move. Crack crack crack. Jillian, who was wandering around, couldn't bear the violent Ryatsu, and his bones were crushed by the gravity, turning into powder. A bunch of idiots, you can take your time. In the distance, Aizen, who was trying his best to kill Jillian, was absent-minded. His mind was focused on the captains, and he was carefully recording their moves and approximate strength. Aizen's eyes were like a camera, carefully recording everyone's movements, and then slowly analyzing them in his mind. It's useless. East Sensei was surrounded by flames, and even his whole body was on fire, but he didn't feel anything. He was completely isolated by the white bones on his skin, and there was no pain. Not even the slightest pain. Hollow steel skin? Narrowing his eyes, Wu-Chen speculated in his heart. Immediately, the spiritual pressure in his body increased by another level. Puchi. Puchi. Without being attacked, his body split open, and the pain spread all over his body. East Sensei was shocked as he found out that his body was being torn apart by some mysterious force, and he was bleeding. A cold katana's light covered him. Could it be? She suddenly noticed that the sky above her was incomparably dark, and East deity instantly raised her head. Ryatsu, raise eyes, Ans Ryatsu, Ryatsu, Ryatsu's Ryatsu, and Ryatsu, S Ryatsu. Several intersecting black rays of light descended from the sky, leaving a mess wherever they went. Even the wind and waves that blew past were cut apart. Heido 90, Ryatsu glanced at East Sensei. Hollow steel skin shouldn't be able to defend against this move. Black coffin. Puchi. Puchi. As his voice fell, East deity Yao's entire body was torn apart. The invisible blade easily tore through his steel skin and pierced through his body, cutting him into pieces. Even his head was cut into several pieces. Damn, this is bad, I didn't control my strength. Seeing this, Dustless cursed. His intention was to kick East Sensei out of the captain's position, and not to kill him. If he killed East Sensei now, it meant that the Hogyoku would fall into Soul Society's hands. A semi-finished Hogyoku was good, but it was useless to give it to Dustless. He wanted a finished Hogyoku. He regretted killing East Sensei. This kind of talent was useless, but it was too early to kill him. At the very least, he had to wait for the Hogyoku to be born. Ha ha ha. You can't kill me. The semi-finished Hogyoku in his chest shone with a mysterious light, and then it spewed out a large amount of white liquid, and reconnected East Sensei's broken body. He didn't die. Dustless was rather surprised. Immediately, he smiled in relief and said, Super regeneration? This seems to be a hollow move. But, you didn't die, it's God's blessing. I will burn incense when I have time. Dustless didn't care about the ability of super regeneration. He was 10-tailed, and he could also recover any organ in his body. This kid can only use the power of the Hogyoku, and he can also use the ability of super regeneration. But East Sensei can't evolve, it seems that I have to wait for a while. Dustless sighed in his heart. He could only wait for the Hogyoku to be completed, and then he could rob it. In fact, he was jealous of the Hogyoku's other great ability, endless evolution. Although I can't kill you now, I will cripple you first. Your rotten life, after you finish serving me, I will send you to hell to meet your dead girlfriend. His pupils shot out a sinister ray of light, and Dustless instantly vanished without a trace. This sudden turn of events caused Dong Xianyao's entire person to be stunned, and he was flabbergasted. The restless East Sensei immediately released his Ryatsu, and focused on searching for Dustless's traces. Ka ka ka. The steel in front of him had actually been brutally chiseled into a large hole. Unknowingly, Dustless had already arrived in front of East Sensei, and looked down at him with cold eyes. Chapter 1002. East Sensei was extremely frightened, his hands were trembling, and he touched his heart that was penetrated. For a moment, he was dumbfounded. What is this? It was obviously punched through by a fist. What a joke. How can a person's taijutsu be so strong? Bastard, what kind of witchcraft did you use? East Sensei was about to vomit blood. His body was shattered by someone using taijutsu. This was really not a glorious thing. If he didn't deliberately perceive the Ryatsu, East Sensei would have thought that the person in front of him suddenly changed and became the omnipotent captain. Are you talking about this? Due to the Hogyoku, East Sensei was different from before. His blind eyes were reopened, and he could see the outside world like a normal person. Black Fist, looking at the black wrist in astonishment, East Sensei thought that he was old and dizzy, so he subconsciously rubbed his eyes. It's just a casual and ordinary punch. Raising the black iron fist, under the sunlight, it suddenly reflected an invincible sharpness, as if in front of this fist, everything in the world can be easily shattered. Being able to break your steel skin, it can only mean that you are too weak. A casual and simple sentence almost made East Sensei faint. His steel skin can even defend against the captain's attack, but Dustless's dismissive tone clearly said that it was just a thin layer of paper. In anger, East Sensei wanted to use his trump card in one fell swoop. Bankai, insect cleansing final style demon cricket. The Ryatsu released by Zanpakuto suddenly turned into a huge ellipsoidal barrier, wrapping East Sensei and Dustless in it. The surroundings were dark and dim. Is this his Bankai? Dustless muttered to himself. He wanted to speak, but suddenly found that his throat seemed to be stuck, and he couldn't speak at all. Not only that, his hearing, vision, smell, and even his perception of Ryatsu were deprived in an instant. He couldn't perceive anything, and all information from the outside world was isolated. He only knew that he was trapped in a black barrier. Kiki. How does this feel? This is my Bankai. Even you are helpless against it, right? East Deity walked in front of Dustless and smiled sinisterly. Following his line of sight, Dustless was standing in his original spot, completely unaware. Even if East Deity was standing right in front of him, he did not notice. This was the ability of the Eastern Deity's Bankai. It could completely erase everything about the enemy. In this unique domain, you can't feel anything. The only thing you can feel is pain. Don't worry, I will torture you slowly. I will not let you die so easily. East Deity's tone was filled with the joy of revenge. Regardless of whether it was before or just now, she had always been suppressed by Dustless. Now that she was able to retaliate, she felt especially refreshed. With a cold expression, East Deity wanted to slash at Dustless. Poochie. Dustless's skin was very fragile, and it was easily cut by the Zanpakuto, and blood kept flowing. This bastard's ability is actually so strange. Dustless's face instantly turned incomparably pale. The stinging pain from the wound caused him to break out in cold sweat. He twitched uncontrollably, and even his body swayed from side to side. Humph, it's useless to regret. This is what you get for going against Aizen-sama. And don't think that this is the end. This is just the beginning. I will cut you into pieces. Poochie. 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 After saying that, East Deity waved his Zanpakuto madly and began to trample on Dustless. His screams were endless, and those screams were worse than death. One had to admit that East Deity was born to be an executioner. He specifically chose the softest and most painful parts of the human body. His technique was very delicate. In half a minute, Dustless's flesh was removed from his body. Don't you like to be in the limelight? Now that you are in such an unprecedented state, it will shock the entire Soul Society. Eastern Deity coldly laughed. Wu Chen's entire body had been cleanly sliced off, leaving only a skeleton and a head. Of course, in order to ensure Dustless's safety, his organs were also preserved. But in this state, his vitality could only last for a few minutes. Hee hee. You have a good relationship with Captain Unohua. I wonder what interesting things will happen when she sees you in this state. I'm really looking forward to it. Then, East Deity undid his Bankai, and the sky became clear again. Where did that kid go? As soon as he undid his Bankai, Dustless disappeared without a trace. East Deity looked around, and his gaze suddenly froze in the distance. He clenched his fists. He was shocked to find that Dustless was unharmed. His expression was calm, and there was even a faint smile on his face. Impossible, what's going on? Could it be that I was dreaming just now? The moment he lowered his head to think, East Deity was petrified. His entire body turned into a human stick. It was exactly the same as the scene in his dream. East Deity's limbs and flesh were all removed, leaving only his organs and a head. Did this idiot get beaten silly? He kept chopping himself just now. The insensitive Zaraki said as he stared at East Deity as if he was looking at an idiot. Hearing this, East Deity spat out a mouthful of blood. His vision turned black, and his body fell to the ground. Seriously, I just used a little illusion to turn the target of the attack into himself. I didn't expect such a show to happen. Hee hee, what a pity, I should have brought a digital camera. Wuchen curled his lips and sighed. It was a pity that Eastern deity wanted to kill him with his own hands, leaving only his internal organs and his head. He was literally turning himself into a eunuch. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.